Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues and friends, welcome back to the afternoon session of the 47th session of the Committee on Food Security, CFS. During the lunch break, I hope that you have good lunch and also enjoy yourself with the 3 side events that our partners are organized, and also thank you very much for our partners and also organizers for your contribution and support to the work of CFS. Now let us resume our work on agenda item 4, which actually agenda item 4, there are 2 agenda. Item 4A, my power rolling section, and also agenda 4B, we will discuss on gender term of reference. We will, we will focus on the my power rolling section, which will include 2 draft decisions. One is general on the rolling session, and another is on gender TOR. We will address both decisions together toward the end of our meeting this afternoon. The background document for this item is CFS 2021/47/4, CFS multi-years program of work, My Power 2020-2023, update of the rolling session with draft decisions. This document has been prepared by the Bureau in consultation with advisory group and also ad hoc advisory group, and presented to the plenaries for endorsement. The few minor changes presented for your considerations reflect the calendar adjustment that were due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic last year, and that's why some of the activities, some of the work stream were delayed. As a result, the policy recommendation on agroecological and other innovative approaches originally planned to be finalized by October 2020 are now expected to be ready for further endorsement by 4th of June 2021, when an extraordinary CFS plenary, CFS 48, will be convened just for purpose of their adoption of the policy recommendation on agroecological and other innovative approaches. Throughout the document, the numbers of the CFS plenary sessions, as well as the timeline diagram on the last page of the document that you can see the detail there, has been updated accordingly. No additional substantive updates to the my power rolling sessions are envisaged for this year. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the years 2020 has been dominated by personal and also professional challenges none of us could ever have imagined before. And this year 2021 is set to continue to be challenging. As CFS chair, I'm extremely proud to see that even in these challenging times, we have honored our commitments to the MyPal we all agree to in 2019. Adjusting to new work modalities has not been easy at times, but we were able to learn, cope, adapt, and move forward together. And we need your support, and we need your flexibility. Very early on when FAO closed and almost every country adopted lockdown measures, CFS Bureau met to discuss the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on food securities and nutrition. For this, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to each of you for your contribution and support, and also for your response to the COVID-19. If I can, maybe I can ask our secretary if you can show us about because last year we have a lot of activities on COVID-19. Perhaps you can show us what we have done, and maybe I think it's on the website as I have checked last night. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. You see, as the world tackles the COVID-19 crisis, CFS continue to address the pandemic in all its ongoing work on global food securities and nutrition policy convergence process. And you can see that, if you can remember, we requested HLPE to produce the issue paper on impact of the COVID-19 on food securities and nutrition. And then after that, on 19th of March, we convened the special bureau meeting, discussed on this issue. We invited 3 Rome-based agencies to update us the situation of the COVID-19 impact on food securities and nutrition at that time. And then we also have the letters of the chairs afterwards. And then again on 13th of May, we organized another special events on the COVID-19, and the discussion papers was produced, and also some other op-ed to respond to the situation of the to ensure food securities and nutrition in the COVID-19 crisis were published. And then again on 21st of July, we also have another event to discuss on COVID-19 as well. And then in October, I think it's on 13 to 15 of October, we organized the high-level events of the CFS. And also in each day, we also discuss on the COVID-19 situation, and also the COVID-19 impact on food securities and nutrition. All of this are our effort, our commitment to respond to the COVID-19 situation. And we would like to express our sincere thanks to your commitment, your contribution, and your support to ensure that the committee play an important role, and also to use the power of this platform to discuss on the COVID-19 and also on the policy convergence process. And thank you, HLPE, for producing a very interesting and very useful issue paper on the impact of the COVID-19 on food security and nutrition. This one is more or less that we have done so far on the COVID-19. And I would like to open the floor for the comment from the members and other stakeholders. And then after that, we will continue further discussions on the work stream of the gender equalities and women empowerment, and consider both draft decision at the end. Now I would like to give the floor to all of you to discuss on the MyPal rolling sessions now. Okay, I got New Zealand, followed by Mali, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for that very useful introduction. I just wanted to get in early just to say that we endorse the current MyPal and we would certainly fully agree to the recommendations as they've been drafted. And thanks for reminding us of all the useful contributions that the CFS has made to discussing the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, CFS certainly is a unique platform and has shown the ability to bring together a wide variety of different groups from all different sectors and governments together to talk about these really important issues, including how they impact on the work that we're doing in the CFS. Clearly, the MyPower is ambitious. I mean, we've just come through a very difficult time negotiating the nutrition and food systems guidelines. Worked really hard together to achieve a resolution there, and clearly we need to be careful not to do too much at any one time. Clearly, I think agroecological and other innovations will also be quite challenging, but we'll commit ourselves to helping to get that over the line as well. Just in terms of other comments, I just think clearly we've said repeatedly we're very supportive of the work stream on data. We think that this work stream is going to be fundamental to the achievement of all of the other work streams in practice. It's a limiting factor, lack of data and monitoring and development of policies and understanding how we're achieving the different SDGs. So we're really, really happy that the CFS is getting into this space. We're happy that we have advisory group members who are supporting financially this work stream. And we think that the work stream is going to not only support the other MyPower items, but also the outcomes of the Food Systems Summit and other works that's going on in FAO and other bodies. So we're really excited about that work stream. We're very happy that the HLPE has initiated the start of that work stream and has put a call out to experts to join in developing the HLP report in the upcoming process. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, New Zealand. Then I give the floor to our Ambassador of Mali, followed by our Republic of Korea. Mali, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. La déclaration de la République du Mali relative au point 4 du programme de travail pluriannuel du Comité de la sécurité alimentaire mondiale pour la période 2020-2023. Monsieur le Président, le Mali et le Burkina Faso prennent la parole au nom du groupe régional africain sur le programme de travail pluriannuel du Comité de la sécurité alimentaire mondiale pour la période 2020-2023, notamment sur l'information actualisée sur la section à l'évolution continue et le cadre de référence des directives volontaires du CSA sur l'égalité des sexes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles dans le contexte de la sécurité alimentaire et de la nutrition. Le groupe régional africain félicite le CSA, ses groupes de travail, l'élaboration du programme de travail pluriannuel et apprécie la qualité des documents mis à sa disposition permettant d'évaluer la vision du CSA, ses objectifs et les incidences budgétaires de ses futurs travaux. Le groupe régional africain est conscient que la période de 2023 est une période critique pour le CSA compte tenu des défis auxquels il fait face, notamment l'approche des échéances des ODD en 2030, l'augmentation du nombre de personnes souffrant de la faim, les implications de la pandémie de la COVID-19 avec une réduction des ressources, toutes choses demandant une bonne planification des actions. C'est pourquoi le groupe régional Afrique demande au CSA de bien vouloir considérer l'inclusion d'un axe de travail sur la COVID-19 au programme de travail pluriannuel. Au point, activité B2, engagement du CSA à suivre l'évolution des impacts du COVID-19 sur la sécurité alimentaire et la nutrition et à fournir des orientations aux gouvernements nationaux. Quant au processus, Le CSA continue à suivre l'évolution des impacts du COVID-19 sur la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle et fournira des orientations pour l'élaboration de réponses gouvernementales dans le cadre d'un groupe de travail à composition non limitée animé par un État membre en s'appuyant sur la note thématique de COVID-19. Ces contributions, Monsieur le Président, seront mises au point définitivement lors d'une autre réunion ouverte animée par un membre. Elles seront ensuite adressées au bureau du CSA et au groupe consultatif après examen en séance plénière pour examen à la plénière du CSA 48. En ce qui concerne le cadre de référence des directives volontaires du CSA sur l'égalité des sexes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles dans le contexte de la sécurité alimentaire et de la nutrition, présenté dans le document CFS 2021-47/5, le groupe régional africain apprécie ce premier résultat qui fait suite à la décision prise par le CSA lors de sa 46e session en 2019. Le régional africain, Monsieur le Président, salue le travail remarquable réalisé par le groupe de travail à composition non limitée sur l'égalité hommes-femmes et l'autonomisation des femmes sous la coprésidence de Madame Joséphine Ouedraogo, ambassadeur du Burkina Faso, et de Satou Lassila de la Finlande, avec l'appui technique du secrétariat du CSA, qui soumet ainsi à notre appréciation des termes de référence complets pour encadrer l'élaboration des directives volontaires du CSA sur l'égalité des sexes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles. Chaque pas que nous ferons, Monsieur le Président, ensemble pour l'égalité hommes-femmes dans un secteur spécifique est un saut qualitatif pour la dignité de la race humaine. Pour notre région, les directives volontaires du CSA contribueront sans nul doute à la sécurité alimentaire et à la nutrition. Les femmes et les filles sont les principales actrices de l'alimentation en Afrique. Elles sont au début et à la fin du processus, Monsieur le Président. L'égalité des sexes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles sont essentielles pour atteindre tous les objectifs de développement durable à l'horizon 2030, ainsi que pour garantir le système alimentaire qui soit durable d'un point de vue économique, social et environnemental. C'est pourquoi, Monsieur le Président, le groupe régional Afrique approuve le contenu du cadre de référence des directives volontaires sur l'égalité des sexes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles dans le contexte de la sécurité alimentaire et de la nutrition, et exhorte le CSA à mettre tout en œuvre sur le plan technique, institutionnel et financier pour garantir un processus consultatif inclusif qui mobilise effectivement toutes les parties prenantes, tant au sein du groupe de travail à composition non limitée qu'au niveau national, régional et international. Le groupe régional a noté avec intérêt que la mise en œuvre du programme de travail pluriannuel sera conditionnée par la mobilisation des ressources suffisantes pour les axes de travail prévus qui sont tous d'actualité et pertinents. Le groupe régional Afrique, Monsieur le Président, invite toutes les parties prenantes à contribuer à hauteur de souhait pour permettre l'exécution des activités programmées. Le groupe félicite le CSA pour les détails des activités et les coûts afférents estimés. Le groupe régional africain joint sa voix à celle du CSA pour inviter les trois organismes de rang.
I think now you go beyond the 5 minutes already, as we agree. Please conclude your intervention. Sorry to disturb. Please go ahead.
Monsieur le Président, le groupe régional Afrique encourage donc le CSA dans la mise en place d'une stratégie solide de mobilisation de ressources qui permettra de financer les sessions et les axes de travail du CSA tels qu'indiqués dans le programme de travail pluriannuel. Sur ces notes, le groupe régional approuve le programme de travail pluriannuel du Comité de sécurité alimentaire mondial pour la période 2020-2023. Je vous remercie.
Yep. Thank you very much. I just would like to remind, thank you very much for your intervention and also your suggestion, I just would like to remind the speaking times will be limited to 3 minutes with maximum of 5 minutes for regional groups and also for the CSM and PSM. Now I give the floor to Republic of Korea, followed by Dominican Republic, please.
Thank you for the floor, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, my fellow delegates. The Republic of Korea appreciates the Secretariat's effort on the rolling section of the 2020-23 CFS MIPO. In general, the 2020-23 MIPO is well planned, considering the trajectory of CFS work thus far and the schedule of the Food Systems Summit. With my delegation's full notion of the current presentation of CFS essential and crucial roles, we'd like to address two following suggestions. First, we recommend CFS to continue its effort for improving visibility and influence. We recognize CFS' considerable workload, including 3 plenaries in this year, another important policy guideline of agroecological and other innovative approaches, and consultations on voluntary guidelines on gender and women's empowerment. At the same time, my delegation would like to stress the paramountcy of the CFS output's actual and pervasive usage. CFS products needs to be utilized in various occasions by diverse actors from the government, parliament, academia, to civil and private sector, each with specific contexts. We believe that a voluntary guideline is non-binding, but the word voluntary is meaningful as far as there are sufficient users. Second, my delegation recommends CFS to continue its work in an efficient manner while securing necessary resources. Since we take a note of CFS plan of work along with its extra budgetary cost, we expect all the necessities to be adequately supported by various entities and ways. Moreover, we urge the Secretariat to efficiently use its resources as much as possible, bearing in mind that virtual consultation is still a major method to move CFS work forward under the COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, we sincerely hope CFS to take a full advantage of virtual means during as well as even after the pandemic. My chair, with this comment, the Republic of Korea endorses this document. Thank you very much.
Please.
Mr. Chair, we missed who you called next.
Yeah.
I think you called on Dominican Republic next.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of the Dominican Republic, we have a youth delegate, and she will be taking the floor in our stead. So if you could please instruct the Secretariat to reset the clock, she will be taking the floor right now. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. Mi nombre es Celina Rodríguez Díaz y tengo el honor de tomar la palabra en calidad de miembro joven ad hoc de la Delegación de República Dominicana. El programa de trabajo plurianual, aprobado en octubre de 2019, constituye un acuerdo histórico para la lucha global contra el hambre y la malnutrición. Mañana tenemos previsto aprobar y adoptar las directrices voluntarias sobre los sistemas alimentarios y la nutrición, documento que desde ya es una de las columnas de la Cumbre de Naciones Unidas 2021. Estamos avanzando hacia un consenso alrededor...
Van a poner reloj cero. Tú tienes tu pantalla abierta.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dominican Republic, for bringing our voice of youth to be heard here. And thank you for our youth as well for her participation in the CFS. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure. Sir, Mr. Chair. Yes, I am very sorry. I am told that there was a glitch and the youth delegate has not finished yet. Could you please, sir, instruct that she's given the 2 minutes that still she needs to finish her speech.
Yep. Okay.
There was a glitch at the source. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please. The floor is yours. You have to unmute first, please. Yep.
Gracias, señor presidente. Mi nombre es Celina Rodríguez Díaz y tengo el honor de tomar la palabra en calidad de miembro joven ad hoc de la Delegación de República Dominicana. El programa de trabajo plurianual, aprobado en octubre de 2019, constituye un acuerdo histórico para la lucha global contra el hambre y la malnutrición. Mañana tenemos previsto aprobar y adoptar las directrices voluntarias sobre los sistemas alimentarios y la nutrición, documento que desde ya es una de las columnas de la Cumbre de Naciones Unidas 2021. Estamos avanzando hacia un consenso alrededor de la agroecología y otros enfoques innovadores. El PTPA también prevé formular recomendaciones de políticas sobre datos, así como para la reducción de desigualdades. Todas estas son áreas clave para avanzar hacia el objetivo de desarrollo sostenible de hambre cero. Deseo resaltar dos secciones del PTPA que tendrán un impacto positivo en mi país, en la región latinoamericana y caribeña y en todo el mundo. Una es la línea de trabajo sobre género, proceso que culminará con directrices voluntarias que brindarán a los Estados miembros y los asociados en el desarrollo orientaciones prácticas concretas sobre la forma de promover la igualdad de género, los derechos de las mujeres y las niñas y el empoderamiento de las mujeres. El otro espacio de labor que exige atención especial creará recomendaciones de políticas para involucrar, contratar y retener a los jóvenes en los sistemas agrícolas y alimentarios, en el entendido de que los beneficios de invertir en la juventud son inconmensurables en términos de seguridad alimentaria, reducción de la pobreza y generación de empleo, así como de paz y estabilidad política. El carácter inclusivo del CSA permite a jóvenes como yo participar de modo activo en el estudio, debate y aprobación de políticas. La inclusión es la fuente de la autoridad y el prestigio del comité. Señor presidente, distinguidos delegados, la frase «el futuro es de los jóvenes» es muy usada, por ser una verdad evidente en sí misma. Este periodo de sesiones tiene lugar en un momento crítico para la humanidad. Para que los jóvenes de 2021 tengamos un futuro, necesitamos que los adultos de hoy tomen decisiones de consenso a partir del diálogo inclusivo y participativo. Esas decisiones, basadas en la ciencia y el conocimiento, son la clave para enfrentar y resolver las crisis del presente. El programa de trabajo plurianual del CSA es un instrumento de colaboración global que está contribuyendo a que los jóvenes podamos crecer y desarrollarnos en un mundo mejor. Por ese motivo, la Delegación Dominicana apoya el PTPA. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much for your participation, and also your voice is very important for us because you are our future. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Norway, followed by Australia, please.
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. Greetings from sunny Norway, and a special greeting to the youth delegate from the Dominican Republic for her message and voice in this meeting. I am happy to join you here this afternoon at the CFS, the main global arena for discussing pressing food security issues and agreeing on policy recommendations based on scientific advice from the HLPE. The CFS Annual Progress Report for the period 2019-2020 shows indeed a high level of activity and a large number of processes. However, allow me to reiterate the concerns Norway raised at last year's CFS. Is the committee delivering according to the intentions of the 2009 reform? The number of processes and work streams under the CFS is in our view too high. A number of activities are planned from now until 2023, according to the update of the rolling section of the MIPOV. Allow me to underline caption B from the beginning of this document, the document we are discussing. It notes that the full implementation of the MIPO 2020-2023 will be contingent upon sufficient financial and human resources, taking into consideration a manageable workload. This is indeed an important reminder to us all to ensure that the CFS seeks to have a manageable workload. This in turn impacts on the committee's legitimacy and efficiency and is therefore a joint responsibility for us all. Allow me to comment briefly on caption B under this agenda item. In the next 2 years, we are embarking on a process to develop voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. My delegation supports this work wholeheartedly as a long-standing champion of women's rights and gender equality. We also support the proposed terms of reference for this work as they are spelled out in the document before us. We must, however, ensure that the process leads to a focused set of guidelines, providing added value and leading to empowerment and rights of women in the context of food security and nutrition. In closing, Chair and colleagues, allow me to point out that the list of achievements listed in the INF document, CFS Annual Progress Report 2019-2020, is impressive in numbers and outreach. Yet, the importance of the work of the CFS should be measured more by the level of uptake of its policy recommendations and by the importance of the committee as a central UN body in the field of food security and nutrition. To achieve this, we should seek to adjust the activities to a more realistic level. We should reinvigorate the CFS plenary by reducing the number of items on the agenda of the CFS and thus inducing more in-depth exchanges and discussion in the plenary meetings. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Norway, for your intervention and also suggestion. Now I give the floor to Australia, followed by Portugal, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I begin, may I please clarify, are we being asked to provide comments on the rolling plan and the gender item at the moment, or just the rolling plan? Because I can intervene in both directions depending on your answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your question. Actually, we plan to have in the afternoon, we can have the first half of 1.5 hours for rolling session, and the second half we will discuss, just focus on TOR of the gender work stream. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you, Chair. In which case I have a short intervention on the MyPow to give now. So Australia welcomes the opportunity to comment on the CFS multi-year plan of work, and we offer the following 4 comments. First, we highlight the importance and value of the data collection and analysis work stream. The necessity of data to support robust evidence-based policy guidance is well understood, and it is instrumental in our collective efforts to deliver against the 2030 agenda. Second, we note the need to encourage and maximise fulsome engagement of members. And in this regard, and based on our recent experience, we highlight the importance of not overloading the work program and the value of dedicated attention to one work stream at a time. This is particularly important for countries such as Australia that have a small representation base. Third, Australia notes and supports the agreed order for the CFS to address the identified thematic work streams. We also emphasise the value of integrating CFS consideration of cross-cutting issues such as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic into the existing work streams so as to not create additional resource burden and adverse funding implications. And fourth and finally, Chair, Australia highlights the importance of CFS operating within its mandate and the importance of the committee augmenting and not duplicating existing work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Australia. Now I give the floor to Portugal, and then after that I will give the floor to CSM and then PSM. Now I give the floor to Portugal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, and dear delegates. Mr. Chair, I am honored to speak on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. The Committee on World Food Security is an integral and central component of the governance of the world food security and nutrition. Its products are especially relevant for the United Nations Food Systems Summit 2021, in a period when the world is sailing uncharted waters, testing the resilience of food systems, food security, and nutrition. We welcome the proposal for the CFS multi-year program of work for 2020-2023, prepared by the Bureau in consultation with the advisory group, and express our appreciation for the detailed information provided. We note the need to constantly reflect the right balance in terms of workload, human and financial resources. The speed and scale of the current pandemic crisis has demonstrated the need for the CFS to be able to react in case of sudden, urgent, global and major crises. Thus, we support the possibility for the CFS, in consultation with its members, to be able to tackle, under exceptional circumstances, issues arising from such crises, and include them in its multi-year program of work. Furthermore, and even though it is
Chair. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessie McGuinness, and I'm a small-scale agroecological farmer. I'm also the Youth Vice President of the National Farmers Union of Canada, a founding member of the Via Campesina, and I'm a member of the Youth Working Group of the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism. So today I'm speaking to you on behalf of women, men, and young minds.
Hoy hablo en nombre
to express their frustration, disappointment, and anger. Yesterday, pressing the acute crisis around the world who have been devastated. These Oh, is there an issue with translation?
Yes, Jessie, I think you should start again.
Okay, yep.
Okay, is it ready to go now?
Okay, please. You can.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Thanks. Can the time be reset? I'm not sure what happened there.
Okay, no problem. We can give more time for you a bit, yeah, during the this interruption. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
I'm not sure what sounds there's something wrong with. Okay, yeah, please.
Oh, I'll start over. Okay, thank you. Yesterday, country after country took the floor to express how pressing the acute crisis of COVID-19 is. You claim to speak for those around the world who have been devastated by this health crisis, the food crisis, these multiple crises of our fragile neoliberal economic governance and development models. You came to the CFS plenary this week, a body established and then reformed for the precise purpose of addressing food crises. And you told the international community that this was the most—
Excuse me. There's a problem in headquarters. We need to stop the session for 5 minutes. They're trying to figure out what the problem is. This is
5 minutes.
暂停5分钟时间，休会5分钟。
We stop the session for at least 5 minutes.
You're muted, Chair.
Okay. We break for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, now you can proceed, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Excuse me? The secretary,
Chair?
the CFS chair is trying to get in.
Yes, I just let him in.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Secretariat. Now I give the floor back to CSM, please.
Okay, I think I'll start from the top if that's okay. Because I think some people missed my introduction, so.
Yeah, okay, please.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, hello again, everyone. Let's start this again. My name is Jessie McGinnis. I'm a small-scale agroecological farmer and the Youth Vice President of the National Farmers Union of Canada, a founding member of the Via Campesina, and a member of the Youth Working Group of the Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism. Today, I'm speaking to you on behalf of young women, men, and non-binary youths, peasants and smallholders, urban food insecure youth, farm workers, and all of our CSM brothers and sisters to express our frustration, disappointment, and anger. Yesterday, country after country took the floor to express how pressing the acute crisis of COVID-19 is. You claim to speak for those around the world who have been devastated by this health crisis, this food crisis, these multiple crises of our fragile neoliberal economic system. You came to the CFS plenary this week, a body established and then reformed for this precise purpose of addressing food crises, and you told the international community that this was the most important issue facing us today, that we need to address this devastation. And yet, there has been no policy response. In the midst of a crisis in which the planet is speaking to us more and more clearly, a large number of negotiating governments have chosen to ignore this urgent call. The CSM and HLPE have been raising the alarm since March, demanding that the CFS take action, asking the international community to address this food crisis together. And nothing has happened as of yet. You continually ask youth to step up, to participate, and we are told that we'll be listened to, that you want to work with us, that our insights are of critical importance, and yet we presented to you our concerns in October. We presented a declaration for a radical transformation of food systems. We shared how we and our communities have been responding to the COVID crisis despite inadequate government responses. We put in the work for our future and for future generations, and still there has been no coordinated policy response. Nothing from this body tasked with responding to global hunger and malnutrition. This is unacceptable. This is shameful. The youth are watching, and we will not stand for this. There is no excuse for inaction. The CFS has the mandate, the responsibility, and the ability to work towards a coordinated multilateral response to the food systems crisis laid bare by COVID-19. It seems only political will is lacking. Every month that we delay means lost opportunities. Idleness is complicity in the face of the destruction of this ongoing crisis. We support the call from the Africa Group today for changing the rolling section of the MyPow. It is time for the CFS to fulfill its duty, and this is an important step. It will place COVID-19 on the agenda of the CFS and provide vital space for discussing policy response. We support this approach. We also welcome the EU statement underlining the need for the CFS to be able to react to the COVID crisis and call on them now to back up their statements with action. We propose an addition to the decision box for today's session, reassert our commitment to a global policy response to COVID-19 and request that countries support. Specifically, we propose the following language. The CFS agrees to further on the impact of COVID-19 on food security and nutrition and the need for effective policy responses by CFS. We now ask you all to respond to the recommendation of the Africa Group regarding the rolling section and our recommendation regarding the decision box. We would like to emphasize that Africa's proposal simply fills a hole in the rolling section of the MyPow since the activity CFS engagement in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development will not be carried out as foreseen in the MyPow due to the fact that the deadline for submitting the CFS's contribution to the high-level political forum has been anticipated this year to the 15th of March. The proposal is also zero budget. We do not want to hear platitudes, vague statements, or the usual excuses. We want action. Perhaps you will say we can't reopen the MyPow, but the purpose of the MyPow rolling section should be to respond to crises like these. When the CFS adopted the MyPow process in 2018, it insisted that CFS work should be guided by the needs of the people most affected by food insecurity and malnutrition, anchored in realities on the ground, and identified the plenary as the prime place to define demands and priorities. Perhaps you'll worry about the workload of CFS representatives, but what about the crushing workload that COVID is placing on the shoulders of our constituencies, women particularly, and of government people on the ground, especially in the Global South, which CFS policy guidance could lighten? Perhaps you will say we can't address items not in the MyPow, but in the last few days, we have heard you speaking over and over about the Food System Summit and preparing the CFS response to that. The Food System Summit appears nowhere in the MyPow. We can and must address the COVID-19 crisis in the context of the MyPow. All it takes is your initiative. There are no excuses, we must act. We've put our proposal in the chat and we now wait for your response. We are listening, we're taking notes, and we're reporting back to our communities.
Excuse me, I think now you go beyond 5 minutes already. You need to.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now I give the floor to, according to my list, before we have a break, it should be Switzerland, followed by France, and then Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe as a first reaction of what we've just heard from a Switzerland point of view, it's clear to us that we are discussing the MyPow in the context of the pandemic situation. In this regard, we would like to underline our support to the way proposed by the Chair and supported by the Bureau. This implies that the CFS continues to work on a solid knowledge base provided by the HLPE in form of the issues paper prepared in 2020. Impact of COVID-19 on food security and nutrition. The flexibility embedded in the MyPow to handle current and emerging topics is, in our view, sufficient to position the CFS in its role vis-à-vis the pandemic. As a second point, Switzerland would like to underline that solid, adequate, and stable resources of the HLP and the CFS Secretariat are a prerequisite for supporting the implementation of the MyPow. This implies particularly a strong engagement of the Rome-based agencies on the specific needs of the Secretariat. The ownership and the shared commitment of the RBAs is essential to encourage complementary contribution by member states. The third point, we would like to welcome the engagement of the Chair to broaden the financial base of the CFS and encourage increased effort in this respect, in line with your strategy of resource mobilization and outreach. Abroad, this covers the geographical perspective, but also the diversity of stakeholders. A broad financial base of the CFS supports the legitimacy and serves the increase of attention towards the product of the CFS. As a last point, we would like to comment and with regard to the CFS policy recommendation on agroecology and other innovative approaches. Switzerland would like first to thank the former rapporteur, His Excellency Mohamed Emadi, for its demonstrated leadership in this work stream, and we look forward to continue to work in the same spirit of compromise under the new rapporteur, His Excellency Olaniran. Secondly, we would like to express our concern that the draft policy recommendation are substantially deviating from the corresponding HLP reports and its recommendations. In our view, the upcoming process should substantially valorize the actual content and finding on this report. And third, we recognize the difficulties of running negotiation under the current constraints and therefore express the need for a high degree of clarity and transparency for the process towards its finalization. With these comments, Switzerland endorses the update of the rolling section. Thanks for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Switzerland. Before I give the floor to France, previously before the disruptions, I already called for PSM after CSM. Sorry for this inconvenience. Now I give the floor to PSM first and then France.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to provide remarks on behalf of the PSM. I am Audrey Erickson with RB, a global leading nutrition, health, and hygiene company with a deep commitment to the work of the CFS, to gender equality, and to women and girls empowerment. The PSM appreciates and supports the speaker today from the Dominican Republic and representing the youth, as well as our future generation, and also supports the comments of Australia. I would like to begin by recognizing that this CFS MyPal began almost at the same time as the COVID pandemic. Despite this, and under the chairman's leadership, the CFS membership, Bureau, and CFS and HLPE secretariats have continued the agreed work program and responded to the evolving situation by planning for not one, but 3 CFS plenary events this year, and doing so in a continuing inclusive manner. The PSM greatly appreciates the commitment shown by all in implementing the work program and will continue to be involved in all aspects and work streams. The ongoing work program is part of the new 4-year MyPal that was agreed by the plenary following the recommendations of the CFS evaluation. The decision to have a 4-year program has allowed us all to focus on both the agreed work streams without having to convene and develop a new MyPal. It has also allowed us to adapt that program to allow for the extensive work done on the COVID pandemic. We would like to express our appreciation to the HLPE for leading that piece of work. The evaluation of CFS also highlighted the need for the CFS to deliver impactful, relevant products at country level. We are clearly making progress with the work on the voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition, the work on agroecological and other innovative approaches, moving towards negotiation in the coming months. The work stream on gender equality and women's empowerment should begin following the anticipated approval of the terms of reference later today. This will allow us to take forward the rolling program of the MyPal. As we turn to youth engagement and employment, we remind that the report should explore the potential of food systems and enhanced rural-urban linkages to provide more and better jobs for women and youth. The PSM supports that emphasis on the opportunities and dynamics for income earning opportunities and employment for youth. This will mean promoting private sector development, investments, and value chain development to generating more and better jobs for youth. The PSM also looks forward to contributing to the planned intersessional events on data collection and analysis and reducing inequalities for food security and nutrition. Both are themes that are already being explored by the preparatory work of the Food Systems Summit, and these are therefore CFS products which will facilitate the implementation of the summit's outcomes. Combined with 3 plenaries and several negotiations, this will be a high demand on CFS time. The PSM therefore endorses the decisions being put before CFS membership today and encourages CFS to implement the MyPow in the order to which it was agreed and to remain tightly aligned to the ambitious number of work streams that are before us. Now is a time for CFS to remain focused not on more products, but on high quality, effective ones that can help advance global food security. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, PSM. Now I give the floor to France, followed by Brazil, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La France s'aligne sur la déclaration de l'Union européenne. Nous saluons le programme de travail 2020-23 préparé par le Bureau, en particulier les axes sur l'agroécologie et sur l'emploi des jeunes. Comme l'ont indiqué l'Union européenne et le mécanisme de la société civile, nous sommes d'avis que cette programmation ne doit pas être figée et qu'il est essentiel de laisser au CSA la flexibilité de pouvoir être réactif en cas de crise alimentaire importante et d'ampleur mondiale. Nous saluons dans cet esprit les éclairages apportés par le HLPE sur la crise de la COVID-19 et ses effets sur la sécurité alimentaire et la nutrition. Et nous nous félicitons de la réunion de haut niveau du CSA en octobre dernier. Une telle flexibilité pourrait se traduire par quelques manifestations parallèles sans pour autant remettre en cause les grands axes définis dans le programme de travail qui permettent de garder une vision à moyen terme et doivent constituer l'essentiel du travail du CSA. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, France. And now I give the floor to Brazil, then Chile, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nutrition and its universal realization through food security and the right to adequate food is at the core of the mandate of the CFS. And it is the main goal of all the policy convergence processes we undertake in our Committee on World Food Security. To achieve that, the ambitious nature of this multi-year program of work, 2020-23, although straining much of the capacity of some delegation, especially those of developing countries, shows the importance attributed to food security and nutrition by all members of the CFS. Nevertheless, the CFS workload, especially in light of these extraordinary sanitary conditions we live in, should be carried on, taking into account the capabilities of the representations in Rome, especially those of smaller delegations, and the general calendar of the RBAs. Mr. Chair, as we approach the middle term of the United Nations Decade of Action on Nutrition, it's never excessive to recall that nutrition is the main and ultimate goal of all activities and policy projects of the CFS. Although combating malnutrition is a multidimensional work, we must have our goal focused and clear to end all forms of malnutrition. Mr. Chair, with these comments, Brazil endorses the MyPow rolling section. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brazil. Now Chile and then Russian Federation, please. Chile, please. Okay. We cannot hear you, Chile. Yeah.
Gracias, señor presidente. Un minuto porque tengo que desactivar esto ahora sí. Gracias. Agradecemos a la Secretaría la preparación de los documentos y las actualizaciones brindadas sobre el estado de situación de las distintas líneas de trabajo del Comité. En relación a la evaluación del programa de trabajo plurianual del Comité, entendemos que los retrasos de algunos marcos de trabajo fueron producto de las dificultades logísticas que impuso el COVID-19 y comprendemos la intención de recuperar tiempo perdido a través de la aceleración de procesos. Sin embargo, advertimos sobre la inconveniencia de superponer negociaciones y líneas de acción durante el calendario 2021, ya que la sobrecarga de actividades en el CSA podría tener el efecto adverso, conduciendo a la relentización de los procesos y a eventuales colisiones con otras actividades de los demás comités de la FAO. Esto limita de manera importante la capacidad de las delegaciones pequeñas como la nuestra para participar debidamente, afectando así la transparencia e inclusividad de los procesos. Garantizar un proceso de elaboración transparente y plural que incorpore las visiones y posiciones diversas y múltiples es fundamental, para lo cual coincidimos con otras delegaciones en la necesidad de racionalizar la carga de trabajo del comité. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Yep. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Russian Federations and Eritrea, please. Russian Federation.
Thank you, dear Chair. As the member of the Russian delegation, representing also the youth part of the delegation, at least according to the national classification of youth, let me provide you with the views of my country on this agenda item in Russian. Уважаемый господин председатель, мы не возражаем против корректировок программы работы КВПБ, предложенных в документе CFS 2021/47/4. Исходим с того, что они в основном связаны с переносом сроков мероприятий вследствие пандемии. Поддерживаем созыв 4 июня сего года внеочередной 48-й сессии КВПБ для рассмотрения и утверждения рекомендаций КВПБ по агроэкологии и другим инновационным подходам ведения сельского хозяйства. Приветствуем назначение председателем переговорного процесса посла Нигерии доктора Яя. Уверены, что под его умелым руководством нам удастся выйти на консенсусный документ. Учитывая вероятность сохранения виртуального формата переговоров и принимая во внимание непростой опыт согласования руководящих принципов по питанию, призываем членов КВПБ воздержаться от внесения в проект документа нового текста и сосредоточиться на поиске компромиссных развязок по уже имеющимся в нулевом документе параграфам. Уважаемый господин председатель, в качестве реакции на ряд уже прозвучавших новых предложений со стороны участников сегодняшнего мероприятия, позвольте сообщить следующее. Россия разделяет важность комплексной оценки влияния пандемии на продовольственные системы. Для качественной проработки руководящих принципов рекомендаций, например, по COVID-19, потребуется напряженная работа как для стран-членов, так и сегмента деловых кругов и гражданского общества. Вместе с тем, график работы комитета уже сейчас сильно перегружен. Свидетельство этому – перенос согласования и утверждения рекомендаций КВПБ по агроэкологии и другим инновационным подходам ведения сельского хозяйства. В этой связи, в качестве исключения, мы могли бы согласиться на новое направление работы КВПВ, но только при условии комплексного пересмотра программы работы. На практике это означает замену одного из менее важных в данной экстраординарной ситуации направлений на более актуальное, например, связанное с воздействием COVID. Господин председатель, в противном случае, как нам кажется, комитет не сможет эффективно работать сразу по нескольким направлениям. От этого может существенно пострадать качество разрабатываемых документов в КВПБ и, как следствие, их восприятие на международных площадках. Вопрос загруженности комитета не раз становился предметом обсуждения на соответствующих сессиях руководящих органов ФАО, и нам бы следовало придерживаться их рекомендаций. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you, Russian Federation. Now I give the floor to Eritrea, please, and then US.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, for providing me the floor. Eritrea has the pleasure to deliver a statement on the 47th CFS session on Market Program of Work 2020-2023 and aligns itself with the statements made by Mali and Burkina Faso on behalf of Africa. Mr. Chairperson, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, Eritrea appreciates FAO for the successful work has accomplished and commend the Secretariat and CFS for organizing the 47th session. Mr. Chairperson, Eritrea endorses the Martyr Program of Work 2020-2023. The implementation of the Martyr Program of Work is pertinent. However, it requires financial support and human resources. Hence, it is very important that the three Rome-based agencies, as usual, upgrade consistently and contribute to the implementation of Martyr Program of Work. Furthermore, voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition is pertinent and important. Gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment is essential to achieving all sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda, as well as ensuring food systems that are economically, socially, and environmentally sustainable. Hence, advancing gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment is critical to achieving the vision of ending hunger and ensuring food security and malnutrition for all, and for the progress realization of the right to adequate food in the context of national food security. Realizing gender equality and empowering women and girls will make a crucial contribution across all of the agenda's goals and targets. Mr. Chairperson, Eritrea underlines the valuable input of the implementation of the multi-year program of work, and hence appreciates the three Rome-based UN agencies for their further support and consideration regarding supporting the utilization at country level. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eritrea. Now I give the floor to US and then Argentina, please.
Thank you, Chair. The United States compliments the CFS Secretariat and the Chair for their work this past year on implementing the CFS MyPow, particularly given the challenges of COVID-19. We would like to reiterate the importance of the work stream on data collection and analysis tools. We see data as one of the critical gaps that limit countries from taking effective action to address the SDGs and create more resilient, sustainable food systems. We see this work stream here providing a clarifying role on the importance of data, noting how it could be used to support agricultural policy making, monitoring and reporting, and identifying best practices and pathways to improve data capabilities at the country level. While we recognize the multitude of impacts that COVID-19 continues to have on food security and nutrition, the United States does not support guidance convergence process on COVID-19 to the MyPow 2023. It would be extremely difficult to add additional items without delaying or canceling some of the current work plan. Already, in just the first year of implementing the current MyPow, we have seen slippage on its implementation. We note that even without a dedicated workstream on COVID-19, there are multiple CFS recommendations on the subject, including in the Voluntary Guidelines on Food Systems and Nutrition, the HLPE issues paper, and we expect that will also be covered in the upcoming workstream on policy recommendations on agroecological and other innovative approaches. That is to say, we do not see the need for a separate workstream on COVID-19 as is already embedded throughout the CFS's work. For these reasons, we endorse the updated rolling section of the CFS MyPow and do not support changes at this time. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, US. Now I give the floor to Argentina and then Senegal, please.
Sí, gracias, presidente. Pido disculpas no encender la cámara, pero no estoy en mi oficina, estoy en viaje. Por lo tanto, permítame agradecer a la Secretaría la preparación de los documentos y las actualizaciones brindadas y además, por supuesto, con relación a la evolución del programa de trabajo plurianual del comité, entendemos que han existido dilaciones que se justifican en el contexto de la pandemia, pero al mismo tiempo creemos que recuperar el tiempo perdido es algo necesario, pero que al mismo tiempo, de manera prudente, deberá ser equilibrado con la actividad de otros comités de esta organización, a los efectos que la necesidad de poder compensar los tiempos no afecte las otras actividades que también son importantes en el marco de la FAO. En la misma línea, nos gustaría destacar la centralidad que reviste la confección del documento Promoción de la Participación y el Empleo de los Jóvenes en los Sistemas Agrícolas y Alimentarios, especialmente durante este año en el que debatiremos acerca del futuro de los sistemas alimentarios y la necesidad de visibilizar a los actores claves a través de los distintos mecanismos productivos. Simplemente, como lo hemos expresado en oportunidades anteriores, recordamos la importancia de garantizar un proceso de elaboración transparente y plural, que se base en conceptos y terminología que cuenten con el consenso de los miembros. Comentario similar merecen las futuras negociaciones sobre agroecología y otros enfoques innovadores, presidente. Es evidente el interés que despierta esta línea de trabajo, sobre todo la temática particular que aborda, la cual no escapa a nadie, genera posiciones controversiales. Pensamos que en este contexto será fundamental garantizar la incorporación de visiones y posiciones diversas y múltiples, sin abordajes sesgados o ideologizados, para poder construir un documento que refleje la realidad de los esquemas productivos agrícolas actuales. E insisto, seamos prudentes con los tiempos, tratemos de intentar cumplir con el calendario, pero ello no puede ser objeto de condicionamiento a la calidad del texto que estamos en condiciones de producir. Gracias, presidente, por su amabilidad de darme la palabra. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Argentina. Now Senegal and then Spain, please. Senegal, please. Okay, otherwise I give the floor to Spain first and then back to Senegal. Oh, Senegal, okay, you here. Yeah, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie de m'avoir donné la parole. J'en profite pour saluer votre leadership et féliciter le secrétariat du CSA pour son dévouement et l'ensemble des efforts qu'il a consentis. Ensemble, vous êtes en train de faire en tout cas un remarquable travail et soyez-en félicités, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, j'interviens sur ce point 4 relatif au programme pluriannuel du CSA, MyPow 2020-2023 révisé. Et tout d'abord, j'aimerais dire que le Sénégal fait sienne la déclaration prononcées par son Excellence l'ambassadeur du Mali sur ce point. Nous appuyons l'intégralité des suggestions faites dans cette intervention et en particulier la proposition d'inclure un axe de travail sur la COVID-19 dans le MIPO 2020-2023 révisé. Cette proposition nous paraît être des plus pertinentes au regard de l'ampleur de l'impact de cette pandémie sur la sécurité alimentaire mondiale, d'une part, et d'autre part, au regard du cœur de mandat du CSA, qui est de fournir des recommandations sur les politiques et les stratégies à mener en vue d'assurer la sécurité alimentaire mondiale. En outre, le Sénégal soutient pleinement l'activité prévue au titre du 2.1.2 sur l'agroécologie et les autres approches innovantes, tout en félicitant le rapporteur précédent, son Excellence l'ambassadeur Mohamed Emadi, pour son remarquable travail depuis le début du processus de développement de ces recommandations politiques. Nous aimerions nous réjouir de la nomination de son Excellence l'ambassadeur Yaya Olaniran comme nouveau rapporteur de cet important processus. Nous lui assurons de notre plein soutien et comptons beaucoup sur sa légendaire sagesse pour mener à bien les négociations à venir relatives à ces recommandations sur l'agroécologie. Nous nous félicitons également et enfin de l'axe de travail 2.1.4 sur la promotion de l'engagement et de l'emploi des jeunes dans l'agriculture et les systèmes alimentaires. C'est un axe de travail d'une extrême importance pour l'Afrique, compte tenu de l'importance de cette catégorie dans la population de notre continent. Avec ces commentaires, le Sénégal soutient l'adoption et la mise en œuvre du MIPO 2020-2023 révisé. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Oh, sorry, I give the floor to Spain and then Gate Foundation.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Saludamos la intervención de la representante de la Juventud de la República Dominicana, jóvenes agricultoras de esta cuestión. España se alinea con la intervención realizada por en tanto que la presidencia de la Unión Europea y quisiera incidir en algunos aspectos concretos. El Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial somos la plataforma idónea para la búsqueda de soluciones conjuntas, no solo para fomentar la cooperación global, sino que el Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial garantiza la articulación de soluciones desde una perspectiva de derechos humanos .
Okay, now I give the floor to Gate Foundation first and then come back to Spain. Gate Foundation, please.
Disculpe.
Oh, okay, he is here. Please, continue, please.
Disculpas, señor presidente, se había tenido un problema en la conexión. No sé si se me ha escuchado en algún momento o debería de comenzar, señor presidente, desde el principio.
I think you can continue your intervention. I think we got your point. Yeah, please.
Sí, estaba diciendo, señor presidente, el Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria es la plataforma idónea para la búsqueda de soluciones conjuntas. No solo es el foro para fomentar la cooperación global, sino también para articular soluciones desde la perspectiva de derechos humanos y en pleno cumplimiento del derecho a la alimentación. El programa de trabajo plurianual, sin duda, es un programa exigente y cargado. Si bien todos aspectos cruciales para la redefinición de los sistemas agroalimentarios inclusivos y sostenibles que sean capaces de alcanzar el ODS número 2, y múltiples objetivos de la Agenda 2030. La agroecología y otros enfoques innovadores, el empleo y la participación de la juventud, la igualdad de género, por poner algunos ejemplos, son aspectos esenciales de esta transición y que el Comité está abordando y, desde luego, debe abordar. Señor presidente, el impacto de la pandemia de la COVID-19 está causando en la seguridad alimentaria global repercusiones críticas y especialmente sobre aquellos en mayor situación de vulnerabilidad. Sin una acción conjunta y coordinada a gran escala, nos estamos enfrentando ya a una grave crisis alimentaria. El Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria fue creado y reformado para responder a crisis con un impacto en las personas de una magnitud similar a la que estamos viviendo en la actualidad con la pandemia, y también las crisis de largo plazo, como la que estamos viviendo con la emergencia climática o de la biodiversidad. Por ello, resaltamos la necesidad imperante de adaptar el trabajo del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria a la realidad a la que nos enfrentamos, para lo que urge articular una respuesta frente a la pandemia. Por ello, daremos nuestro apoyo a la búsqueda de procedimientos viables, ágiles y efectivos que permitan incluir entre el desempeño del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria la articulación de una respuesta al impacto de la pandemia. Muchas gracias.
Yep. Thank you very much, Spain. I think you've finished your intervention. Now I can give the floor to Gate Foundation and then Thailand, please.
I'd like to begin by thanking Ambassador Tien Sin, the CFS Secretariat, and our partners for the opportunity to host a side event during this year's plenary on country-led agricultural statistics systems. We would also like to thank our colleagues from the Bureau and Advisory Group for moving forward the data proposal made at last year's plenary. We believe that there is no more efficient path in responding to the current crisis or achieving SDG 2, ending hunger, achieving food security and nutrition, and promoting sustainable agriculture without evidence-based decisions informed by accurate, timely agricultural, food security, and nutrition data. The data gaps in agriculture are widespread, affecting 800 million people, or 78% of the world's poorest. SDG 2 and Agenda 2030 provide global consensus on the need to examine and resolve the data problem for agriculture. We strongly value the contribution of the HLPE, which has become a pillar of the work of the committee. The HLP reports can bring expert analysis and evidence to bear on complex problems. A CFS-led HLP research effort, followed by CFS-led policy convergence process, could definitively identify the largest gaps, the best possible investments, and the policy changes necessary to realize the sector's most pressing data for decision-making opportunities. Doing so is core to the CFS's mission, as food security will be impossible without sound data-based decision-making and policies. The CFS is well positioned to take on this effort and sponsor its needed HLPE report, given its position as a central coordinating body, as well as the alignment of these data challenges with CFS's own mission. The CFS cannot make progress on activities that identify and address the root causes of food insecurity and malnutrition if it and other actors lack even the most basic, regular, and reliable information on the state of the world's small-scale producers. We express our support for the MyPow and look forward to collaborating with all CFS stakeholders on this fundamental work stream, including the US, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the PSM, who have expressed support for this matter in their interventions over the past 2 days. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Abil, for Gate Foundation. Now give the floor to Thailand and then Canada, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thailand underlines the needs for increasing financial support and human resources to ensure full implementations of MyPow 2020-2023. We support the chairs and secretariats in their efforts to expand and diversify the CFS financial base in line with the FAO guidelines. We support the work on promoting youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food systems, which is of the utmost importance for global agricultural development in considerations of the problem posed by aging farming population. We think it's very important to attract young people to agriculture, and to retain them in agricultural sector is to create a positive visions and a new narrative of agriculture professionals. With regard to the proposal made by several delegations on COVID-19 work stream in the CFS MyPow, Thailand has no strong objections provided the necessary financial and human resources are made available and duplications of work is avoided. With this statement, Thailand endorses the MyPow rolling session. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Thailand. Now I give the floor to Canada and then Cabo Verde, and then after that we finished our list. Canada, please.
Thank you, Chair. We'd like to indicate our support for the current MyPow before us. It is a full and important agenda, and in particular, we'd like to join others in highlighting the importance of the data work stream, which will contribute significantly to addressing the serious data gap that we know exists and is impacting the strength and effectiveness of our policy and program responses. We fully agree of the importance of CFS contributions to the global response on the pandemic and its impact on food security. CFS has already made important contributions to our understanding of the impact in raising critical issues. We do believe, however, that rather than a separate work stream, it would be better to have a mainstream and embedded approach where the impact of COVID is taken into consideration into the other work that we are doing and not siloed. Finally, I'd like to indicate Canada's strong support for the work stream on gender equality and women's empowerment. We applaud the consultative process in developing the terms of reference. We now have a solid terms of reference, and we look forward to fully engaging in the development of these important guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Canada, for a brief intervention. Now I give the floor to Cabo Verde, please. Cabo Verde.
Bonjour. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je m'appelle Ricardo Luz, je suis technicien du secrétaire national pour la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle. Je suis ici comme représentante de le secrétariat au ministère de l'Agriculture. Bon, le Cap-Vert considère que le CFS est la principale plateforme internationale et intergouvernementale en matière de la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle. Dans ce cas, nous exhortons et soutenons la nécessité de l'engagement du CFS à surveiller les impacts du COVID-19 sur la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle et d'inclure des recommandations et des directives au gouvernement et aux partenaires clés sur le PTBA 2020-2023 révisé. Ainsi, notre pays est en ligne avec la proposition du groupe régional africain dans sa déclaration. Il partage de l'avis de la société civile et de l'Union européenne sur la nécessité d'une réponse mondiale à la crise alimentaire, tenant compte du impact du COVID-19 sur la sécurité alimentaire et nutritionnelle et même le système alimentaire mondial, en particulier dans le PID, le petit État insulaire en développement. En notre point de vue, c'est une question importante qui doit faire l'objet d'une suivi pour atteindre les ODD, principalement le ODD 2. Merci. Pode dizer para o chat. O senhor apomou na cabeça.
Thank you very much, Cabo Verde. Now I would like to propose that we can move to the second part of agenda item 4. It's a 4B. which actually the objective of this session is to begin with the next step in the process to develop the CFS voluntary guideline on gender equalities and women's empowerment in the context of food securities and nutrition. And the term of the reference was agreed in December 2021 during the open-ended working group meeting, which provide a concrete basis for the preparation of the guideline, which are planned to be submitted for the endorsement at the CFS 50 in October 2022. These terms of reference result from multi-stakeholders consultation carried out during the intersessional period. The open-ended working group was co-chaired by Ambassador Josephine Odidaogo, permanent representative of Burkina Faso to the Rome-based agencies, and also Ms. Satu Lasli, permanent representative of Finland to the Rome-based agencies as well. And we really appreciate for their hard work and also for their support. And now I would like to give the floor to now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Satu Lasli to introduce the document CFS 2021/47/5, the term of reference. Please, now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and Excellencies, CFS stakeholders, dear colleagues, very, very good afternoon to you all. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today to introduce the terms of reference for the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. The terms of reference have been developed in an inclusive and transparent way with the participation of all concerned parties and discussed in 2 open-ended working group meetings. After that, they have gone through a non-objection procedure, and as such, the terms of reference are a result of intensive discussions and reflect a delicate consensus. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members and other stakeholders for their active engagement during the open-ended working group meetings and for their valuable inputs and support provided throughout the process. Your guidance and feedback have shaped the terms of reference to be the way they stand now. Special thanks go to those members who have supported the work also financially, including France, Spain, Sweden, and Finland. I would also like to thank the members of the dedicated technical task team who guided us with their expert knowledge and have provided invaluable support to the development of these terms of reference. These teams include gender experts from GR, CSM, FAO, IFAD, IIAT, PSM, UNICEF, UNCSN, UN Women, WFP, and World Bank. Dear experts, we count on you for the preparation of the actual guidelines. Special thanks go to Mrs. Josephine Ouedraogo, Ambassador of Burkina Faso, with whom I had the honor to collaborate as a co-chair. As already mentioned by the chair, the terms of reference provide a solid basis for the development of the guidelines, clarifying its rationale, objectives, and scope. The guideline will support member states and other stakeholders with concrete policy guidance to advance gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment as part of their efforts to improve food security and nutrition. They will identify opportunities to promote gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment and strategies to overcome institutional and structural barriers and discrimination. I bring to your attention that the terms of reference are aligned to the word and spirit of the CSF multi-year program of work that Plenary approved in October 2019. They are consistent with the intergovernmentally agreed language in 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and with other intergovernmentally agreed documents. They emphasize the importance of food security and nutrition not only for women, but also for girls, as in line with the 2030 agenda. The open-ended working group therefore proposed to reflect this in the title of the document that is submitted for approval, adding girls to women's before empowerment. I believe that the terms of reference, as they stand, represent a good compromise between different views and provide an excellent basis to start our work and the preparation of the actual guidelines. I would like to thank all the members for their openness and flexibility during the process, and I really hope that we'll continue with the same great collaborative spirit in future. At this point, it would be advisable to avoid reopening the terms of reference text to maintain the balanced consensus achieved during the open-ended working group meetings. The terms of reference are the very first step of a long process. Once the terms of reference are endorsed, we will immediately start to develop the zero draft. The preparation of zero draft will focus on the section C of the terms of reference, identifying key policy messages and recommendations. These messages and recommendations will lay out the foundation for development of the guidelines. For the purpose of developing the zero draft, we will organize expert consultations, tentatively in April. The objective of the expert consultations is to provide support to the Secretariat to prepare a first version of the zero draft. These consultations are part of the process led by Secretariat for the preparation of the zero draft, with support from the technical task team. As the zero draft of the guidelines should already reflect recommendations for good policy practices and lessons learned, we will approach you and request stakeholders to share lessons learned and innovations for advancing gender equality in the context of food security and nutrition soon after plenary. And after I've listened to the intervention that took part before, I believe that I have to say that COVID-19 will certainly be one of the focus here. We are very keen to get your lessons learned on the COVID-19 and the linkages between gender equality. And we will inform you about the next steps in writing. We hope to have the preliminary version of the zero draft ready to be shared with the open-ended working group by mid-May and the zero draft finalized by early June. This is an ambitious schedule, but we'll make every effort to accomplish it. The zero draft will be widely shared with the CFS stakeholders at national and regional levels during the regional consultations that are planned to take place from July to October this year. The objective is to align the guidelines with regional and national priorities and needs. There will be also electronic consultation from July to September to obtain additional inputs, comments, and suggestions. After the regional consultations, we will prepare the first draft of the guidelines by March 2022, incorporating all the inputs received and discussed with the members of the open-ended working group. The final version of the guidelines is planned to be prepared and negotiated by June 2022 and presented to the plenary in October 2022. We are committed to a participatory, inclusive, and transparent process. Excellencies, dear colleagues, we have now a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to put gender equality, women's and girls' empowerment at the center of food and nutrition agenda and discussions. Let's use it to the maximum extent and work together to achieve an ambitious outcome. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, our co-chair of the open-ended working group on gender equalities and women empowerment work stream. Now I would like to give the floor to the members and also stakeholders if you want to have any further discussion on these issues. But anyway, I know that some of you already made your intervention during the previous sessions. But anyway, if some still have additional point, please feel now I can give the floor to Nicaragua, followed by Mexico. Nicaragua, please.
Muchas gracias, presidente. Acogemos con una enorme satisfacción la propuesta sobre la directiva voluntaria sobre igualdad de género y empoderamiento de la mujer y niñas en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria. Expresamos nuestro agradecimiento a la labor del grupo de trabajo de composición abierta e invitamos a continuar desarrollándolo sobre la base de un proceso abierto e inclusivo que comprenda las consultas regionales, tomando en cuenta la contribución de los Estados miembros, así como las buenas prácticas. Como bien lo reconoce el documento, la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de la mujer y las niñas y su incorporación transversal en los diferentes procesos será esencial para avanzar en el cumplimiento de los ODS de la Agenda 2030. Aún más, en consideración con la preocupante situación mundial generada por la pandemia. Desde nuestra perspectiva, la igualdad de género es un tema de particular interés. Estamos convencidos, y lo hemos demostrado como país, que garantizar la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de la mujer es una precondición fundamental para lograr avanzar en la lucha contra la pobreza, el hambre y la malnutrición. En este sentido, podemos dar una pequeña testimonianza de cómo Nicaragua hemos logrado avanzar en este tema y sobre todo evidenciar con resultados concretos de cómo la participación activa de la mujer en la toma de decisión política, económica, social y productiva ha permitido alcanzar significativos logros en la reducción del hambre y la desnutrición. Solo un ejemplo, señor presidente. En el periodo 2006-2016, Nicaragua logró reducir del 48.3 al 24.9 los índices de pobreza y la pobreza extrema del 17.2 al 6.9. Esto debido a una cantidad de programas que fueron dirigidos y están siendo dirigidos a fortalecer la participación de la mujer en la vida social y económica política de nuestro país. Hoy día Nicaragua, según el informe de brecha de género del Foro Económico Mundial de Davos, ocupa el primer lugar en materia de igualdad de género entre los países en desarrollo, así como entre los países de América Latina y el Caribe, y el quinto lugar a nivel mundial. Por ello, señor presidente, con particular atención, acogemos con mucha satisfacción la elaboración de estas directrices voluntarias. Esperamos participar y recibir periódicamente información actualizada sobre estos procesos. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much, Nicaragua. As you know that we have a time constraint now, we still have our 17 members and stakeholder requested for the floor. If it is possible, I would like to encourage you to have a brief interventions, if possible, if you can make it within 2 minutes. Okay, now I give the floor next to Mexico and then Kenya, please.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. México da la bienvenida al mandato para las directrices voluntarias sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres y las niñas en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Esta ha sido una tarea pendiente en la producción de documentos relevantes dentro del comité para abordar de manera directa el rol de las mujeres y niñas en la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Si bien en otros productos, incluyendo la reciente negociación de las directrices voluntarias sobre sistemas alimentarios y nutrición, se aborda el tema de género en un apartado importante, no es suficiente para dimensionar las aportaciones de la mujer en esta y en todas las actividades económicas y con ello promover el avance hacia una auténtica igualdad y equidad de género. En el más amplio espectro, el ODS 5 busca lograr la igualdad entre los géneros y empoderar a todas las mujeres y las niñas. Como en el resto de los ODS, como comunidad internacional nos hemos comprometido a alcanzar las metas de la Agenda 2030 mediante el cumplimiento de los ODS. Sin embargo, solo se puede avanzar en el cumplimiento si hay una efectiva transversalización del enfoque de género en cualquier formulación de políticas. Para esta formulación, las directrices pueden convertirse en un instrumento muy valioso de orientación para que se cumpla esta aspiración. Para cumplir los compromisos de alcanzar la equidad entre hombres y mujeres, México ha emprendido acciones para concretar dicho objetivo, como la creación del Instituto Nacional de Mujeres, institución encargada de articular el enfoque de igualdad de género en todas las dependencias de gobierno. En diciembre pasado se publicó el decreto que aprueba el Programa Nacional para la Igualdad entre Mujeres y Hombres, que se llama Proigualdad 2020-2024, cuya observancia es obligatoria para las dependencias y entidades de la Administración Pública Federal. Con este programa, el Gobierno de México busca transitar de las desigualdades existentes que enfrentan las mujeres y las niñas a un horizonte de bienestar, inclusión, mayores oportunidades y garantía de sus derechos humanos, es decir, hacer efectivo el compromiso de Estado de la transversalidad de la perspectiva de género, al articular los esfuerzos de las dependencias y entidades del Gobierno de México en coordinación con los tres poderes y órdenes de gobierno. En el centro de este programa están las mujeres rurales, indígenas, afromexicanas y en condición de pobreza, las que migran, las que tienen alguna discapacidad, las niñas, las mayores, las mujeres LGBTI, entre otras, y tiene 6 objetivos, que son potenciar su autonomía económica, generar las condiciones para reconocer, reducir y redistribuir los trabajos domésticos, mejorar las condiciones para que las niñas, adolescentes y mujeres accedan al bienestar y la salud sin discriminación, combatir los tipos y modalidades de violencia contra las mujeres, niñas y adolescentes, posicionar la participación igualitaria de las mujeres en la toma de decisiones y construir entornos seguros. Con esto consideramos que el producto de las directrices servirá para ayudar a lograr de manera completa este objetivo. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you. Kenya and then Portugal, please. Kenya. Kenya, are you here? Okay, otherwise I move to Portugal and then back to Kenya. Portugal, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving us the floor. I am honored to speak on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. The EU and its member states welcome the endorsement of the terms of reference for the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment. We consider it very important to advance gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment to achieve all sustainable development goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, as well as to ensure food systems that are sustainable and resilient. We also believe that the systematic mainstreaming of gender equality in the implementation of 2030 Agenda is critically important. Advancing gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment is critical to achieving our vision of ending hunger and ensuring food security and malnutrition for all. It is also necessary for the progressive realization of the right to adequate food in the context of national food security. Despite positive progresses made over decades, gender inequalities persist as women continue to face multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination in many areas. The EU, as the global leader in gender equality, has made significant progress in the last decades. However, gender-based violence and stereotypes continue to persist. The objective of the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment coincide with the path that the EU and the member states are pursuing with the gender equality strategy. We seek for ambitious guidelines which will particularly provide concrete policy guidance based on good practices and lessons learned on gender transformative interventions, gender mainstreaming, and innovative solutions. They should support member states development partners, and other stakeholders to advance gender equality, women's and girls' rights, and women's and girls' empowerment as part of their efforts to eradicate hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition in its all forms, towards the progressive realization of the right to adequate food in the context of national food security. In particular, CFS guidance should build upon and integrate existing instruments adopted in the topic within the United Nations system. We reaffirm our full commitment to the work of the CFS, as inclusiveness is a core principle of CFS. We also reiterate our commitment to continue promoting and encouraging the REAs and all other stakeholders, including the private sector and civil society, to participate actively in the process. We thank the two co-chairs of the Gender Work Stream, Ambassador Josephine Dodrago from Burkina Faso and Permanent Representative Satu Lassila from Finland, for their dedicated leadership of the CFS work stream on gender in the preparation of the terms of reference. And we encourage the CFS chair to reach out for possible volunteers to succeed Ambassador Ouedraogo. We consider it essential that the guidelines will result from an inclusive consultative process open to all interested stakeholders. Therefore, the open-ended working group meetings should be held regularly to advance the preparation of the guidelines. Also, regional consultations with all stakeholders in 6 regions in the world should be planned at an early stage in order to obtain inputs, comments, and suggestions on how best to align the guidelines with regional and national priorities and needs. Consistently with these objectives, several EU member states have announced financial contributions to this work stream, highlighting the relevance given by the EU and its member states to gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment. The guidelines are targeted for adoption at CFS 50 in October 2022. We look forward to successful and ambitious continuation and outcome of the process. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Kenya again. Kenya, are you here? Kenya. Okay, yeah, please. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me the floor. And Kenya aligns itself with a statement made by Mali on item 4 on behalf of the African Regional Group. Additionally, we wish to add our voice on the importance of approving the TORs on voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. Chairperson, rural women contribute significantly to agricultural activities in Kenya and in many parts of the world. In many cases, women face substantial disadvantages with regard to succession, transfer of land, and they are often excluded in land decision-making institutions and processes. Chairperson, the COVID-19 pandemic and the measures to mitigate it have increased the vulnerability to women. The pandemic has disproportionately affected rural women's productive, reproductive, and income-generating capacities, as it has reduced their economic opportunities and access to nutritious foods, while at the same time increasing their workloads and escalating gender-based violence. Chairperson, the Kenya government, in recognition of this, has provided in its constitution for equal treatment of women and men in matters of land distribution, noting that rural women and adolescent girls are among the most vulnerable populations to hunger and malnutrition. The Constitution also places great importance on gender equality and the participation of women and girls in the country's developmental agenda. It has provided a platform from which to put in place programs and policies, legislative and administrative measures designed to materially improve the well-being of women and girls in Kenya. Indeed, Chairperson, gender equality is an important factor for food and nutrition security. In conclusion, therefore, Chairperson, the government of Kenya wishes to support the approval of the terms of reference for the development of the CFS voluntary guidelines on the gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. The voluntary guidelines will provide an important platform to raise global awareness about the importance of gender equality and women's empowerment in issues related to achieving food and nutrition security, and mobilize the necessary resources, political attention, and commitment, amongst others. I thank you, Chairperson, and back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ambassador. Now I give the floor to FAO and then Australia, please. FAO, please.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the three Rome-based agencies, FAO, IFAD, and WFP, I'm honored to reiterate our support for the approval of the terms of reference for the development of the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women and girls empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. These voluntary guidelines come at a historical moment in time, with only 9 years left to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, it is of paramount importance to translate political commitments into measurable action at country level so that we can accelerate the achievement of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And we believe that the voluntary guidelines will help achieve this. These guidelines will propel the CFS policy recommendations onto the next level and provide member countries and development partners with concrete practical guidance on removing the underlying causes for hunger and malnutrition, such as gender inequalities. We know that gender inequality is both a cause and a consequence of food insecurity. There's overwhelming evidence that gender-based discrimination or the denial of women's human rights is one of the major causes of poverty and food and nutrition insecurity. Women are more vulnerable both to chronic food and nutrition insecurity and to food insecurity caused by shocks. In 2019, across all continents, women were more food insecure than men. Similarly, we have seen that the gender gap in accessing food worsened between 2018 and 2019. We have also seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has intensified the vulnerabilities and inadequacies of global food systems. More people are going hungry as a result of the economic recession triggered by the pandemic. We know that improving gender equality by empowering women and girls can substantially contribute to every country's economic growth and is a fundamental determinant of food security and nutrition. Expanding opportunities for women and girls is also a human rights obligation and is essential to women and girls realizing their right to food. But despite the evidence and the numerous global commitments made to address gender inequalities, progress in eliminating gender-based discrimination in the context of food security and nutrition has been slow. This needs to change, and we believe that the voluntary guidelines will provide. Sorry about that. Can you?
Okay, please.
Yes, I'm almost done. We believe that the voluntary guidelines will provide an effective means to swiftly address these inequalities in accordance with the principle of leaving no one behind. This is why we, the Rome-based agencies, fully support the approval of the terms of reference for the development of the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, FAO, on behalf of the three Rome-based agencies. Now I give the floor to Australia and then Republic of Korea, please.
Thank you, Chair. Australia is committed to advancing gender equality and the rights of women, both at home and overseas. We consider gender equality to be a fundamental human right that, when respected, makes the world safer, more secure, and more prosperous. At the same time, gender inequality undermines global prosperity, stability, and security, and often exacerbates a range of challenges, including poverty, weak governance, conflict, and violent extremism. In turn, it also negatively impacts food security and nutrition. Australia is boosting women's economic security by creating opportunities and removing barriers to women's participation in the workforce. Since 2015, the Australian Government has released economic security statements, which have included measures totalling around 360 million Australian dollars. These measures have included supporting more women into male-dominated industries, improvements to the parental leave pay system, and support for female-led startups. Australia approves the terms of reference and offers the following comments in the development of the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment. We are encouraged by the attention on causes, the consolidation of existing work, the use of data and research, and the focus on intersectionality. We also welcome that the issue is being addressed from an empowerment perspective rather than one of vulnerability. In relation to opportunities to promote gender equality and women's empowerment in paragraph 14E, we suggest cross-checking coverage of SDG 2 and SDG 5 targets, noting, for example, that sexual and reproductive health and rights is relevant to food security and nutrition, but is not currently listed. We recommend updating the statistics where possible in the terms of reference, drawing from more recent existing work, including the 2020 SOFI report. We suggest that the guidelines not limit themselves to drawing on development work. We say this noting that organisations with a remit broader than development, such as the APEC Policy Partnership for Food Security, have also done useful and relevant work in this space. And finally, we consider it would be useful to draw upon broader guidelines on responsible investment in agriculture and financing, with a view to building on the role of the private sector in improving gender equality and women's empowerment. In closing, we would like to draw attention to the excellent series of short videos outlining why gender equality and women's empowerment matter to food security and nutrition in the WFP Gender Toolkit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Australia. Now, Republic of Korea, and then Russian Federation. Republic of Korea, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The Republic of Korea welcomes the terms of reference for the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment. It is significant to systematically mainstreaming the gender equality and women's empowerment, since this issue is deeply connected to food systems and SDG 2030. Despite of our efforts thus far, we still frequently hear cases of discrimination and inequalities based on gender along the value chains of food. This is linked to an unequal access to food and results to rural women and girls' high percentage of food insecurity and malnutrition. Therefore, inadequate measures which can strengthen women's rights in food systems and their timely implementation on the ground are essential. The Korean government has been proactive in strengthening gender-sensitive agricultural policies and raising awareness through various measures based on the Act for supporting female farmers and fisherwomen since 2002. In 2019, we established a separate division dedicated to female farmers in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, based on a recognition of rural women as a crucial human resource, which accounts for 51% of rural population. As a part of this effort, in last October, the Ministry of Agriculture held the first virtual international forum and competitive exhibition in commemoration of 25th anniversary of the International Day of Rural Women. With these comments, the Republic of Korea endorses the terms of reference and expects CFS as well as open-ended working group to closely cooperate with member states and relevant stakeholders in an inclusive manner. The Republic of Korea will do its part during the process as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Republic of Korea. Now, Russian Federation, please.
Уважаемый господин председатель, позвольте поблагодарить госпожу Жозефин Квадрауго и госпожу Сатула Сила за их усилия в разработке круговедения, в соответствии с которым комитет вскоре приступит к субстантивному наполнению добровольных руководящих принципов по вопросам гендерного равенства и расширения прав и возможностей женщин в контексте продовольственной безопасности и питания. Добровольные руководящие принципы, на наш взгляд, должны охватывать только ту часть гендерной проблематики, которая непосредственно связана с вопросами продовольственной безопасности и питания. Считаем необходимым избегать предвосхищения итогов дискуссий, которые идут на профильных площадках в Женеве и в Нью-Йорке, и использовать только консенсусные формулировки. К сожалению, на этапе подготовки круговедения были предприняты попытки внести определения и понятия, которые не пользуются поддержкой соответствующих межгосударственных структур. В этой связи считаем, что язык будущего документа должен основываться на терминологии, согласованной в рамках профильных органов ООН, в первую очередь в рамках Конвенции о ликвидации всех форм дискриминации в отношении женщин, Пекинской платформы действий и повестки 2030. Господин председатель, еще один важный нюанс, на который мы хотели бы обратить внимание. В работе над документом важно исходить из неравнозначности документов, которые сейчас фигурируют в круге ведения. Нужно учитывать, что часть из них имеет юридически обязывающую силу, другие же носят рекомендательный характер. Более того, позвольте отметить, что публикации ООН, которые преимущественно отражают мнение экспертов, не могут служить безоговорочным основанием для продвижения той или иной идеи. Господин председатель, наша страна готова участвовать в конструктивном диалоге по формированию добровольных руководящих принципов. С нетерпением ждем первой встречи группы открытого состава и рассчитываем, что дискуссии будут строиться вокруг тем, непосредственно связанных с мандатом КВПБ. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much. I would like to remind you that the time is not our friend anymore. That's why I would like to request all of you to have your intervention brief and short. Thank you very much. Franz, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La France s'aligne sur la déclaration prononcée par le Portugal au nom de l'Union européenne et de ses 27 États membres. La France salue les travaux du groupe de travail du CSA à composition non limitée, ayant abouti à la définition de termes de référence des directives volontaires sur l'égalité femmes-hommes et l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles dans le contexte de la sécurité alimentaire et de la nutrition. Nous estimons que ces termes de référence sont une bonne base pour établir des directives volontaires ambitieuses sur ce sujet crucial. En effet, les femmes jouent un rôle primordial dans les systèmes alimentaires et sont des actrices clés pour garantir la sécurité alimentaire et la nutrition. Toutefois, de nombreux facteurs sociologiques, économiques et politiques entravent toujours l'accès des femmes et leur contrôle des ressources de production, des instruments financiers et des instances de décision, ce qui les maintient dans des situations de pauvreté et freine leur émancipation économique, politique et sociale. La lutte contre les inégalités entre les femmes et les hommes est une priorité politique pour la France, qui a adopté et qui porte une diplomatie féministe. Nous accueillerons en juin 2021 le forum Génération Égalité que nous co-organisons avec ONU Femmes et le Mexique. La France soutient pleinement, politiquement et financièrement ce processus de directive volontaire. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Franz, for your brief intervention. Now I give the floor to CSM and PSM, please. CSM, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. Yo soy Miriam Nobre, de la Marcha Mundial de las Mujeres, y hablo desde Brasil en representación del Grupo de Trabajo de Mujeres del Mecanismo de la Sociedad Civil y Pueblos Indígenas. Este grupo involucra a mujeres que producen alimentos, que son agricultoras, campesinas, pastoras, sin tierra, pescadoras, trabajadoras agrícolas y del sector alimentario. Mujeres que manejan conocimientos ancestrales en la producción de alimentos, de los pueblos indígenas y comunidades tradicionales. Son también consumidoras responsables, defensoras de derechos humanos, jóvenes, personas LGBTQIA. Nuestra diversidad nos hace conscientes de las múltiples e interseccionales formas de discriminación. Somos parte de estas mujeres que sostienen la vida y que la sacan adelante en contextos de crisis, de amenaza a la vida que la pandemia del COVID-19 hace más evidente que nunca. Aunque la economía de mercado, sus datos y sus indicadores se ciega a esta enorme cantidad de trabajo y disponibilidad permanente de las mujeres hacia el cuidado del otro. Aunque las condiciones en que este trabajo se realicen sean muy duras, todavía más duras en esta pandemia que ha acentuado sin precedentes la violencia machista y de género, las discriminaciones y la precarización de nuestras vidas, tanto en los contextos urbanos como rurales. Sabemos desde nuestros cuerpos de la indisociabilidad entre la igualdad de género y la seguridad alimentaria y nutricional. O mejor, que los derechos de las mujeres y la igualdad de género son la precondición para que verdaderamente nadie de nosotras se quede atrás o sola. Por eso todo es que acogemos con satisfacción la adopción del mandato para las directrices voluntarias del CSA sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres y las niñas en el contexto de seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Queremos dar nuestro profundo agradecimiento a la presidenta del Grupo de Trabajo Abierto, Satula Sila, y la presidenta cofacilitadora, Joséphine Ouedraogo, embajadora de Burkina Faso, por habernos guiado con determinación hasta esta primera etapa de este proceso político. El propósito de hacer avanzar los derechos de las mujeres y las niñas en dirección a un mayor compromiso en sus implementaciones es para nosotras fundamental. Una guía política concreta y que promueva mayor coherencia entre las agendas de promoción de la igualdad de género y de seguridad alimentaria y nutrición a nivel mundial. Unas directrices que sepan ser valientes, vocales y capaces de subvertir lo existente, que dejen de marcar a las mujeres como víctimas para reconocerlas plenamente como sujetos de derecho. Como organizaciones de mujeres y desde nuestros feminismos entramados, hacemos un llamamiento a todos los miembros para que el proceso de elaboración de las directrices siga abierto, inclusivo y transparente, anclado con fuerza y alma al CSA reformado y a las expectativas, demandas y deseos de millones de mujeres en el terreno que con su labor cotidiana permiten la reproducción social de la vida toda. Nos anima especialmente la inclusión de consultas regionales que creemos que nos ayudarán a llegar a mucho más organizaciones feministas, redes de mujeres y movimientos campesinos e indígenas. Invitamos a todos los actores del CSA a comprometerse con este importante proceso, reconociendo a las mujeres en cuanto sujetos políticos, con análisis, propuestas y derecho a autodeterminarse y a sus cuerpos. Reafirmamos nuestro compromiso con el proceso, donde iremos a aportar con nuestras propuestas políticas desde una mirada feminista, agroecológica y de lucha por la soberanía alimentaria, para afirmar el derecho de las mujeres a la tierra, al agua, a las semillas, al intercambio de conocimientos y saberes, a la construcción de mercados territoriales y locales, a la protección social y una vida libre de violencias. Muchas gracias.
Yep, thank you very much. Now I give the floor to PSM, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the private sector mechanism, I would like to thank Burkina Faso and Finland for their excellent work on the terms of reference. The PSM fully endorses this document as a basis for work on the important issue of women in agriculture and the need for greater gender equality and empowerment in this field. Today, we highlight the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and unalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. We know that to achieve this right to true equality, women in agriculture need practical interventions at all levels. Women deserve the right to land and other productive resources, such as financial services, business registration and operation, and employment opportunities. That their leadership and expertise feed into work on food security, including helping to develop guidelines and initiatives related to land investment and nutrition. And access to proper reproductive, prenatal, postnatal, and maternal services, particularly proper nutrition in the first 1,000 days for both mother and child. Beyond being important producers of food, women play vital roles in household nutrition. And yet still in some systems, they are too often among the last to be fed. We think it is important to emphasize the need for women and girls to receive good nutrition. Women are also a vital part of the food system supply chain. In this regard, women too often face discrimination in access to financial services and entrepreneurship training. We hope that the gender negotiations will take into account practical interventions such as agricultural extension and entrepreneurship training that will support women's economic empowerment. With concrete suggestions, these voluntary guidelines could do much to advance gender equality globally and to build a better food system. Furthermore, we hope CFS can assist the robust community working on gender equality and women's empowerment to collaborate and coordinate even more. We want to ensure that women receive the full suite of needed services to help them support themselves, their families, and indeed the entire food system. As a small-scale agroecological farmer and an entrepreneur myself, my personal hope is that these voluntary guidelines will ensure that my sisters around the world can benefit from the same opportunities I've had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PSM. Now I give the floor to US and then Thailand, please. US, you're here. US.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Gender equality and women's empowerment are key pillars of our approach to food security and one of our highest priorities as part of the US whole of government food security initiative, Feed the Future. In addition, gender analysis is required to inform our US international development strategies, project designs, and their implementation. Reporting, training, and assessment are mandated to ensure the policy delivers meaningful impact. We know women are key to achieving our ultimate goal of ending poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. We know that when women have the tools to succeed, they reinvest in their families and their communities, and they create a multiplier effect that promotes global prosperity and stability. Therefore, we thank the open-ended working group for its work to make clear that the gender equality and women's empowerment work stream is focused on impacts to food security and nutrition per CFS's mandate. We thank the working group for strengthening the focus on data and evidence and for underscoring strongly the roles of women beyond production. The US endorses the draft terms of reference for the voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition, as well as a process for developing the draft guidelines as outlined in the draft decision note. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, US. Now I give the floor to Thailand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thailand expresses appreciation
Thailand,
of the work.
sorry, you have an echo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thailand expresses appreciation of the work of the open-ended working group on gender equality and women's empowerment and acknowledges the effective leadership of the co-chairs. We recognize the importance of gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment for sustainable development, given their central roles in nutrition of family and household and in agriculture. In this regard, we would like to offer two comments. First, we need to take into account the specific cultural context. Societal gender norms are deeply embedded in culture and are therefore very difficult to change or override. In order to facilitate transition to gender equal societies, due consideration should be given to the rationale and history of gender societal norms, as well as to what are the triggers of gender discrimination in different cultural contexts. This would also facilitate the development of a theory of change and way forward towards gender equality and women's empowerment. Second, the financial aspects. We think that the estimated budget of $700,000 to finalize the process should be reformulated to take into account the new normal of the World Meetings and related opportunity of consistent savings. With this statement, Thailand endorses the term of reference of these voluntary guidelines. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Thailand. Now I give the floor to Argentina and then Spain. Argentina, please.
Gracias, presidente. Voy a tratar de ser breve, muy claro y con respeto a la opinión de todas, de todos y de todes. En primer lugar, quiero expresar nuestro agradecimiento y especial reconocimiento a las copresidentas del proceso de las directrices voluntarias sobre igualdad de género y empoderamiento de la mujer en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria y nutrición, por el excelente trabajo que han desarrollado para presentar los términos de referencia sobre los que se asentarán las negociaciones principales. La Argentina sigue con particular atención esta línea de trabajo y es sensible a cuestiones de género, empoderamiento, autonomía, transversalidad, interseccionalidad y salud reproductiva. En nuestro país, la temática de género y especialmente los aportes de las mujeres rurales e indígenas, así como el colectivo LGBTIQ+, son valorados como elementos esenciales para alcanzar mecanismos de producción sostenibles de alimentos y, en consecuencia, para la seguridad alimentaria. Como expresamos durante los debates de los términos de referencia, entendemos que el contenido de las directrices debería centrarse en el diseño e implementación de políticas públicas para el fortalecimiento de la autonomía económica y para eliminar brechas de género en la producción. Consideramos que es muy importante incorporar en los futuros debates, presidente, la necesidad de diálogo entre los gobiernos y las organizaciones sociales y sindicales para la articulación de estrategias para el fortalecimiento de la igualdad en contexto de los sistemas alimentarios. Para ir terminando, presidente. Asimismo, queremos reiterar que el Ministerio de las Mujeres, Géneros y Diversidad de la Argentina está en condiciones de compartir contribuciones sustantivas entre líneas conceptuales fundamentales para abordar las políticas de prevención, asistencia y erradicación de las violencias por motivos de género. Creemos que los términos de referencia captan este espíritu que mencionamos y ponen en el centro de la escena de los sistemas alimentarios a las mujeres rurales e indígenas. Con estos comentarios, presidente, deseamos expresar que acompañamos los términos de referencia elaborados. Gracias, presidente.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Spain and then Indonesia.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. España se alinea con la intervención realizada por Portugal en tanto que presidencia de la Unión Europea y quisiera incidir en algunos aspectos concretos. El último informe SOFI ha vuelto a poner de relieve que la inseguridad alimentaria y la malnutrición se ceban especialmente con las mujeres y las niñas. No lograremos acabar con el hambre y la malnutrición si no logramos garantizar la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de mujeres y niñas. Por eso, creemos que es nuestra responsabilidad apoyar al CSA en sus esfuerzos para desarrollar estas directrices voluntarias que buscan precisamente luchar a favor de la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de mujeres y niñas desde el punto de vista y en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Por todo ello, y tal y como anunciamos en el evento especial de alto nivel del CSA celebrado el pasado mes de octubre, España ha realizado una contribución específica a la línea de trabajo de género y otros países también han anunciado sus compromisos. Valoramos muy positivamente estos términos de referencia para dar inicio al proceso de preparación de las directrices voluntarias y estos términos se basan principalmente en el contenido del Plan de Trabajo Plurianual del CSA 2020-2023 y en el consenso alcanzado en el seno del Grupo de Trabajo de Composición Abierta gracias al liderazgo de las dos copresidentas de esta línea de género hasta ahora, a las que felicitamos por su excelente trabajo. Finalmente, quisiéramos destacar que esperamos que el proceso de preparación se lleve a cabo conforme a lo previsto en el calendario del CSA, de manera que estas directrices voluntarias puedan estar listas para aprobarse en el 50º plenario del CSA en octubre de 2022. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Yeah, thank you very much, Spain. Before I give the floor to Indonesia, I just, from my observation now, I think I have a meeting with just only with 10 person who keep the video, the camera on, and the rest, another 240 colleagues keep it off. It's a new practice of the meeting, of the virtual meeting at the moment. But anyway, if you can be with me and we can see each other, perhaps it can keep the meeting more interactive. And also I want to see your smile as well. And at least I know that I don't stay alone here and listen to all of you. Okay, if you can, and if I don't disturb your privacy, I want to see your smile, and also I want to see at the end, we can also make a good decision for MyPal and also for TOR of gender together, because I know that now we have just only 30 minutes left before 5:30. One of the issues that we are very aware of is about the quorum. Because when we start the evening session, I know that some of you may need to go to pick up your wife, your daughter, your son. And that's why to ensure that in the evening session, when we start to revisit the conclusion of the agenda 3, and then make the decision of agenda 4A and B. We have enough numbers of members to make decision. Thank you very much. Now I go through, oh my God, now at least almost 50 on with me. Thank you very much. Now I continue with Indonesia and Peru. Indonesia, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. Yes, rest assured we are with you, and I'll be turning on my camera until the end. Thank you, Chair. Indonesia notes the draft terms of reference of the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. We appreciate the work of both co-chairs in their inclusive approach in formulating the draft TOR. We underline the importance of the subsequent discussion on the guidelines that will focus on possible ways and means so that women and girls can contribute optimally to our common efforts in eradicating hunger and malnutrition. We believe that a lot of experiences can be gathered in this regard. Therefore, we view that the content of the voluntary guidelines should avoid using terminologies that are still considered controversial and do not enjoy intergovernmental consensus in other fora. Furthermore, in our national context, Mr. Chair, the Indonesian government has put forward gender equality as one of the main priorities in the current national medium-term development plan. This aims to improve the quality of life and the roles of women in the implementation of development programs. Through the Sustainable Food Reserve Garden Program, for example, we have empowered women and youth to utilize their home yards to produce healthy local food for households' consumption and generate additional households' income from excess production. Finally, Indonesia also highlights the importance of continuing an inclusive consultation process by taking into account the national context and capacities in the future deliberation of the open-ended working group. We stand ready to actively contribute to the open-ended working group. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Indonesia. Now I give the floor to Peru and then UN Women, please. Peru and UN Women. Okay, next, Austria. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, may I come in from...
Okay, yeah, sure. UN Women, please.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the floor. UN Women would like to express our full support for this process and to highlight the importance of moving forward with the adoption of the TORs towards the development of these transformative voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. We commend the co-chairs, the secretariat, the technical task team, and the open-ended working group for the rigorous process undertaken to develop the current TORs. This final version reflects the inclusive discussions and richness of perspectives shared over the last months and is in alignment with internationally agreed language, including that from the Commission on the Status of Women. We truly believe that these guidelines are essential in coordinating approaches to improve food security and promote gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment. The voluntary guidelines development and application will catalyze our collective goals to achieve gender equality, importantly, the realization of rights of women and girls, and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This is more needed now than ever in light of the heightened impacts of COVID-19 on food security, poverty, and the widening of gender gaps across the world. Hence, the importance of adopting the TORs now to be able to take us to the next steps. UN Women stands ready to continue its support in the development of the Zero Draft and supporting member states in the adoption and implementation of these fundamental voluntary guidelines. Thank you so much for the floor.
Thank you, UN Women. Now I give the floor to Thailand and then Peru, please. Thailand? Or the previous hand raised? Okay, I give the floor to Peru, please. Okay, not here yet. Austria, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Austria aligns itself with the statement made on behalf of the European Union. We welcome and support the process of creating and enshrining the voluntary guidelines. We thank all those involved in their commitment. Gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls is not only a standalone goal, but the 2030 Agenda also stipulates that the achievement of all SDGs contribute to gender equality. At the same time, reaching gender equality is a necessary precondition for achieving all SDGs. This interdependency becomes particularly evident when looking at SDG 2. Zero hunger. Our vision of a future without hunger, where all people are provided with high quality food, is directly interlinked with gender equality. A future for humankind on this planet is only possible if women and men, as well as boys and girls, are equal. We can meet the ongoing challenges only if women and men have the same opportunities to develop their potentials. They have to work side by side together in mutual respect and use all their efforts to create a sustainable, climate-friendly and peaceful future. SDG 4. Quality education for all is a key achievement for such a future. In Austria, we put high emphasis on eliminating existing gender stereotypes to promote equal participation in education. One example for these efforts is the education of girls and boys in agriculture and forestry schools. Sustainable design and the preservation of rural habitats should not be determined by sex. We want to prepare future generations of women and men to take on this responsibility as equal partners. However, the most important requirement for this concerns us all. To be able to be a role model every day and to live gender equally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Austria. Now I give the floor to Peru. Or otherwise, I give the floor to...
Sí, ¿qué tal?
Okay,
¿Me escuchan?
Peru, yeah, please.
Listo, muchas gracias, señor presidente. Mi nombre es Carolina Ramírez, del Ministerio de Desarrollo Agrario y Riego. Y bueno, es grato para la delegación peruana intervenir en la presente sesión para compartir nuestra preocupación por la situación de las mujeres en el mundo, especialmente de las mujeres rurales, ¿no? Coincidimos cuando se señala que promover la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres y las niñas es esencial para cumplir los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, así como lograr sistemas alimentarios más sostenibles en sus tres dimensiones: económica, social y ambiental. El Perú es parte de diversos tratados e instrumentos internacionales en materia de derechos de las mujeres, tales como la Convención sobre la Eliminación de todas las formas de discriminación contra la mujer, la Convención Americana sobre Derechos Humanos, entre otros. Asimismo, nuestro país cuenta con un marco normativo que reconoce el derecho a la igualdad y a la no discriminación de las mujeres, la lucha contra la violencia hacia la mujer, el acceso a la educación, que promueve, ¿no?, la igualdad de género e introduce las cuestiones de las mismas en forma transversal en sus políticas e intervenciones estatales. No obstante, aún tenemos mucho por hacer, ese es un gran reto, ¿no? Y en este escenario, en el 2019 se aprobó la Política Nacional de Igualdad de Género en el Perú, ¿no?, lo que nos ha permitido articular diversas acciones de manera transversal en todos los niveles de gobierno, inclusive a nivel local, y también en los diferentes espacios de coordinación con los otros ministerios y con los otros actores intrasectoriales. En ese sentido, es importante señalar que para el Estado, atender esta problemática relacionada a las mujeres rurales es una prioridad, ¿no? Consideramos que es un pilar de la agricultura familiar, que en el país es muy importante, pues más del 97% de la agricultura está sostenida en las familias, y por ello la subsistencia que estas familias tienen está pues basado en el rol que tienen las mujeres dentro del hogar, ¿no? En ese sentido se vienen implementando diversas iniciativas para mejorar su acceso a los recursos, como la tierra, el agua, el financiamiento, capacitación y asistencia técnica, ¿no? Entre algunas de las principales acciones que podemos mencionar, tenemos desde el Ministerio la implementación de la Comisión Sectorial de Igualdad de Género en el Ministerio de Desarrollo Agrario y Riego, así como también una futura oficina que se va a implementar en el Ministerio sobre mujer rural, ¿no? Esto para promover de manera más focalizada las capacitaciones y la asistencia técnica dirigida a las mujeres del campo, y de esta manera también propiciar su empoderamiento, ¿no? Destacamos la especial relevancia del mandato para la elaboración de estas directrices en el contexto actual de la pandemia de la COVID-19, cuyos efectos vienen afectando fuertemente a la población en el campo. Y
need to conclude your intervention now. It's 3 minutes already. Please put your intervention, please.
Ok, voy a concluir brevemente. Listo. En ese sentido, tenemos el particular rol de desempeño de las mujeres en el ámbito de la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. Bueno, por ello, señor presidente, consideramos que es muy pertinente el mandato de la elaboración de las directrices voluntarias de este comité sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres en este contexto, ¿no? Esperamos que su aprobación en las siguientes sesiones del comité constituya un paso fundamental en el logro de los sistemas alimentarios sostenibles y también el cumplimiento de la Agenda del 2030, ¿no? Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Peru. I give the floor to Canada and then Zimbabwe, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We would like to join others in commending the excellent leadership of the co-chairs of this work stream and today's presentation of Ambassador Lassilou of the consultative and rigorous process and discussions in the development of the terms of reference, which we fully support. We appreciate the recognition that women face multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, and to see the objective of generating and disseminating data and evidence on diverse situations and experiences, including those of Indigenous women, as highlighted by other delegations. We also note the recognition of needing to tackle societal gender norms, expectations, and power relations, as well as the issue of unpaid care, highlighting that men and boys have a joint responsibility and an active role to play. In alignment with the current language in the TORs on the important role of women's participation in decision-making, leadership, representation, and shaping public policies, it would be valuable to further reflect on any gender gaps that exist in the context of leadership and decision-making spaces within agriculture and how this can be addressed, and to integrate this into the work of the guidelines. Finally, we commend the recognition of the important work of women's rights organizations. Moving forward, we would also recommend adding the recognition of the persistent challenges that these organizations face, including related to funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Canada. Now I give the floor to Zimbabwe, and then I will, after that, I think I will give the floor to our observer and also the UN Permanent Forum in. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. Zimbabwe adds its voice to those who support the terms of reference on this important subject of mainstreaming women in agriculture to ensure food security. Zimbabwe aligns itself with the statement made by Mali on behalf of the Africa Regional Group and the statement delivered by the ambassador of our sister country, Kenya. We also express our appreciation to the co-chairpersons of the open-ended working group, my colleagues from Finland and Burkina Faso. Thank you for a job well done. Women, as has been stated by many who spoke ahead of me, play a critical role in economic activities, but particularly in agriculture and in rural agriculture. Zimbabwe has many women that practice agriculture in the rural areas, and they constitute the poor majority. Yet these women face many problems, just to name a few, including landlessness, inadequate inputs, and lack of access to markets. I would like to point out that the government of Zimbabwe has a ministry dedicated to women, the Ministry of Women's Affairs, whose mandate is to integrate gender equality and women's empowerment. And that currently the government of Zimbabwe is reviewing its land policy. It considers land, this policy review, to be key to the achievement of SDG 1 and SDG 2. But particularly important is that with the assistance of FAO, Zimbabwe is in the process of conducting a national gender-sensitive land policy review. So we remain optimistic that the many problems that are faced by poor rural women farmers and young girls in Zimbabwe and elsewhere in the world will be taken care of. And with these few words, Zimbabwe supports the endorses the terms of reference on voluntary guidelines. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Zimbabwe. Now I give the floor to Dominican Republic, please. Dominican Republic, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. República Dominicana acoge con agrado los términos de referencia para la preparación de las directrices voluntarias sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de la mujer en el contexto de la seguridad y la nutrición. Una decisión que emana del 46º periodo de sesiones celebrado en octubre de 2019. Nuestra delegación está muy comprometida con este tema como punto focal de la Red de Género para el CSA y como cofundadores que somos de la Red de Género en Roma. Es oportuno intensificar vínculos entre la Red de Género y el Comité, sobre todo en el marco de la línea de trabajo del GTCA, para aumentar impacto a nivel nacional, regional y global. Señor presidente, las mujeres son actores clave en el camino hacia el ODS 2 de hambre cero. Fomentar la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres y las niñas es decisivo para poner fin al hambre y garantizar la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición para todos, así como la realización progresiva del derecho humano fundamental a una alimentación adecuada. Con estos comentarios, reiteramos nuestro apoyo al mandato del CSA para preparar las directrices voluntarias y señalamos una vez más la importancia de enfocarnos en esta área de trabajo. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to our observer. We're starting with Holy See and then Sovereign Order of Malta.
Señor presidente, en nombre de la delegación de la Santa Sede, deseo agradecer a los copresidentas por su valioso trabajo realizado en la negociación del mandato para la elaboración de las directrices voluntarias del CSA sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de la mujer en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria y de la nutrición. Este es un tema muy cercano al corazón del Papa Francisco, que en repetidas ocasiones ha subrayado el importante papel de la mujer en el progreso social, la tutela de la biodiversidad, el desarrollo agrícola y la promoción de una cultura del cuidado que adquiere un significado decisivo para lograr la seguridad alimentaria y una nutrición sana y suficiente para todos. Por eso es fundamental que el documento que vamos a aprobar conserve un carácter técnico, en línea con el mandato del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial. A este respecto, sería altamente contraproducente cualquier intento de insertar en dicho texto expresiones controvertidas que no han alcanzado un consenso internacional o quedan al margen del tema de la seguridad alimentaria y de la nutrición, pues se correría el riesgo de debilitar la eficacia y la incisividad del documento final. Además, esperamos que la adopción del mandato y el proceso para la conclusión de futuras directrices siempre se lleve a cabo con un espíritu de inclusión y de transparencia para obtener documentos que realmente respeten el bien común. Las mujeres rurales han de poder formular e implementar leyes e iniciativas que promuevan la igualdad de derechos, oportunidades, capacitación, acceso a la tecnología y participación, de manera que se puedan beneficiar de las finanzas, comercializar sus bienes y contribuir firmemente al crecimiento económico inclusivo, especialmente en la aguda crisis socioeconómica que la vigente pandemia está provocando. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to the Sovereign Order of Malta and then the UN Permanent Forum in Indigenous Issues, please. Okay, I see our Sovereign Order of Malta. Are you ready to deliver your statement, because you are on the phone at the moment? Maybe I give the floor to UN Permanent Platform in Indigenous People issue first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And
You have to come close to microphone, please.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me now?
Not really.
Okay, let me try to adjust the system. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay, thank you. Since this is my first time to take a floor at this session, on behalf of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, allow me to first address the issue of Indigenous people's participation before addressing the voluntary guidelines. Historically, there has been a low participation of Indigenous peoples at the FAO's relevant committees and meetings. Indigenous people's participation in decision-making processes at FAO used to be occasionally and not organized. This important participation vacuum left by Indigenous peoples in FAO Rome has been occupied by other organizations that claim representativeness of Indigenous peoples' views, but without sharing the information and coordinating with Indigenous organizations. In 2018, the Permanent Forum included among its recommendations to FAO the need to enhance participation of Indigenous peoples in FAO technical committees, in particular forestry, agriculture, and fisheries, where traditionally Indigenous peoples have been absent. In the past 3 years, there has been enhanced participation of Indigenous peoples in key FAO meetings and processes. In fact, the civil society mechanism changed its name to Civil Society and Indigenous Peoples Mechanism to continue occupying a political space that has been challenged not only by FAO and Permanent Forum, but also by several members and other actors. Thanks to FAO Indigenous Peoples Unit efforts, the CFS Plenary has invited the Permanent Forum with the president of the with the chair of the Permanent Forum participating in 2016, 17, and 18, speaking at the plenary and introducing Indigenous people's views. The Permanent Forum has sent a letter to the CFS Bureau in 2019 requesting a permanent chair at the advisory group. This is one of the most strategic moves done by Indigenous peoples to ensure that their views are included in the CFS policy discussions. The plenary sessions period is the most important to ensure that the agendas of discussions are influenced. To this date, there is not formal reply to this letter yet. And now let me address the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's empowerment. I'd like also to express my thanks to Burkina Faso and Finland for their work. I'd like to highlight that the voluntary guidelines should include Indigenous women's perspective and contribution to food security and nutrition. The Indigenous women's appropriate participation should be ensured during the drafting processes. The voluntary guidelines should include policy recommendations that address Indigenous women's specific constraints limiting their potential to contribute to the eradication of hunger and malnutrition. Generation of disaggregated data by gender and ethnicity is essential to formulate and implement appropriate policies and address Indigenous women's constraints. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Now I give the floor to Ecuador and then Order of Malta. Please, Ecuador. Ecuador.
Muy buenas tardes, señor presidente, estimados miembros del comité. Gracias por permitirme dirigir al Pleno. Primero quiero indicar que Ecuador apoya la aprobación de las directrices voluntarias para la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de las mujeres y niñas para alcanzar la seguridad alimentaria. En lo relativo al trabajo que se debe realizar para alcanzar la seguridad alimentaria, la delegación de Ecuador desea mencionar y poner a consideración del comité lo siguiente. Como Ecuador, el compromiso por conseguir una sociedad incluyente para las mujeres del sector rural, que son un pilar fundamental de la economía del país, este compromiso se ve expresado en que durante los años 19, 20 y 21 se desarrolló un proceso participativo para el diseño e implementación de la Estrategia Nacional Agropecuaria para Mujeres Rurales, como un instrumento de política pública que busca empoderar y visibilizar el rol fundamental de las mujeres rurales en el sector agropecuario para alcanzar la soberanía alimentaria del país. Además, la igualdad de género es fundamental para dar cumplimiento a los ODS y construir sociedades justas e incluyentes para las mujeres rurales. Instamos a la ONU para realizar un trabajo más integral, donde la familia sea el punto central de desarrollo para alcanzar la seguridad alimentaria y, en el caso de Ecuador, la soberanía alimentaria. Para lograr este objetivo es fundamental que las poblaciones jóvenes miren al sector agropecuario como una oportunidad de vida digna y de esta manera garantizar la producción y provisión de alimentos suficientes y sanos para las poblaciones mundiales. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. The last one is a Sovereign Order of Malta. Please, the floor is yours. Okay, yep, I don't see anything. Otherwise, I may ask the secretariat to share on the screen of the draft decisions of gender TOR, please. And also, I would like to inform the members and stakeholders that the draft decision earlier debated and approved by the Bureau, and today is for your decision. This agenda item 4B, paragraph 1, CFS 2021/47/05, terms of reference for the preparation of the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food securities and nutrition, and CFS 2021/47/6, term of reference for the preparation of the CFS voluntary guidelines on gender equalities and women's empowerment in the context of food securities and nutrition draft decisions, as presented by the co-chair of the open-ended working group on gender, Ambassador Josephine Oda Ogo, Burkina Faso, and Misatu Lassila, Finland. 2. The committee 2A, the committee expressed its appreciation for the work of the open-ended working group on gender equality and women's empowerment and acknowledged the effective leadership of the co-chair of the open-ended working group. 2B, endorsed the term of reference for the preparation of the CFS voluntary guideline on gender equality, women's and girls' empowerment in the context of food securities and nutrition.
So, sorry, Chair, can you hear me? I just missed the opportunity to take the floor. Something was wrong with my line, computer line.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, I can give you opportunities for 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll be very short. Yeah, thank you, Chair, for the floor. Thanks to the co-chair of the working group for their excellent work. Thanks to the Secretariat. First of all, I would like to express the Sovereign Order's appreciation for the decision to put on today's agenda the discussion on the terms of reference in the frame of our joint effort for the pursuance of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Sovereign Order of Malta, as you know, is fully committed across the globe to the objective of women empowered wherever necessary as a cross-cutting issue in all the relevant sectors. This is in line with its long-standing tradition of humanitarian aid to the most vulnerable. We are deeply committed. We believe that the development of voluntary guidelines by the CFS may in fact represent a major tool in our common efforts to bolster the role of women across the board, in particular in achieving food security. The proposed draft decision is, in our view, a good text and an equally good working basis for achieving consensus within the committee. That said, we also believe, and I would like to emphasize this aspect, that the document, as it is now the case, should deal exclusively with issues directly related to food security. It should, in other words, as made clear also by the distinguished representative of the OLC, fully consistent with the CFS mandate. We fear that unduly broadening the rationale of the document would weaken the scope and effectiveness of the guidelines and undermine, in the end, our joint efforts in favor of women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I must apologize for this inconvenience.
I do apologize with you. I do apologize.
Yeah, okay. Secretariat, please show the draft decision on screen again, please. Okay, we continue with 2C. Recognize the importance of an inclusive process open to all interested stakeholders, leading to the adoption of the guideline, which will be facilitated by the CFS Secretariat with the support of a technical task team under the guidance of the CFS open-ended working group led by the co-chairs. D, emphasized the crucial importance of the planned regional consultations, open-ended working group meetings, and an electronic consultation for the ownership and success of the process, and invites all relevant CFS stakeholders to actively participate in the preparation of the guidelines. E, thank CFS membership for providing adequate financial resources in a timely way to enable the full implementation of the policy convergence process. F, requested that the voluntary guideline on gender equality and women empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition be presented for endorsement by CFS at its 50th sessions in October 2022. This one is our draft decision for agenda 4B on the gender TOR, which actually, as I informed you, we at the Bureau have earlier debate and also approved, and today we ask for your kind decision to support our draft decisions and also the TOR that presented to all of you today. Now I'm okay. If there no any requests from the floor, we can, okay. I see Russian Federation, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak brief and with a smile as you requested, and in English to save time. Chair, in general, we can accept the chair summary proposed to us, but I think that some of the delegations clearly indicated during the debates that the work of the elaboration of the voluntary guidelines should be in accordance with the CFS mandate, and the importance of use of the intergovernmentally agreed language was underlined. Probably these two simple and very short ideas could be also reflected in the chair's summary for the adoption of the plenary. I can propose, we can say in the subparagraph C that something like also recognize the importance of following CFS mandate as well as intergovernmentally agreed language in the process of elaboration of CFS, of the voluntary guidelines. This is an idea for thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Russian Federation. We take note, and then we will come back with the new proposal for your reviews and also for your decisions at 6 p.m. when we reconvene another session to finalize all the draft conclusion and draft decision. If you don't mind, is there any other countries who would like to take the floor? Otherwise, may I propose to read out the others draft decision on rolling section. And also I would like to ask my Russian colleague to send your proposal to the CFS Secretariat email as well, cfs@fao.org. If I would like to ask, may I ask Secretariat to show the draft decision of the rolling session on the screen, please? The committee endorsed document CFS 2021/47/4 CFS multi-year program of work MyPal 2020 to 2023 update of the rolling session with draft decisions as presented by CFS Chairperson Thanavat Jensen. B. Noted that the full implementation of the MyPal 2020 to 2023 will be contingent upon sufficient financial and human resources, taking into consideration a manageable workload in accordance with document CFS 2018/45/3. C. Strongly encouraged the three Rome-based agencies to honor their verbal agreement to share equally the cost of the CFS Secretariat budget through either cash or in-kind contributions as a symbol of joint ownership and shared commitment to the committee via effective Rome-based agency collaboration. D. Requested the chair and secretariat, consistent with the CFS resource mobilization and outreach strategies, to continue their effort to expand and diversify the CFS financing base, including by reaching out to CFS members, private foundations, private sectors, and financial institutions. This is the draft decision for agenda for A, MyPal rolling section, which actually, as I informed you earlier, the draft decision earlier debated and approved by the Bureau, and for today we submit to you, and also we listening to you for your decision. Now, okay, yep. I'm not sure that, okay, any others members who would like to take the floor? Senegal, please. Senegal, please. I think you need to unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. Senegal, please.
Chair President Mantode.
Yep, I can hear you, please.
I think the interpretation now is closed, and I have to speak in English, isn't it?
Yep, now is no interpretation. If you can.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair, I wanted to suggest you to think about our declaration on the COVID issue and the importance of including this work stream in the MyPal. I think many of the delegates had suggested to have a bullet point on the COVID-19, but I don't see it apparently in this draft decision. I don't know if we can have it in as a bullet, maybe. Yes, I can come back with a proposal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Any others comment from the members?